We have the big honor of having with us our Brashevitzki from Iran. So I think Brashevitzki is the chaplain of everything in Iran. So there's a good prison system there, no? Good jail there? Too many jails there. So if you ever no, forget about that. Forget about that.
You can do Farbrengen then.
Sadly, we do. Yeah.
But,
Not our plan.
I hope not.
I also want to wish a very happy birthday to Iran. His birthday is tonight.
Happy birthday.
To Iran, this is Yud Tes Kislev.
Good day, happy birthday.
Yes. So, wish a very happy birthday. Have a good year, a happier, healthier, successful year. And big Ashikaya to Chaim Eliezer and Yitzchak. And Ami, who's not here yet, if you're watching Ami, come join us for co-sponsoring Farbrengen tonight. And also a special Chaim. My mother's yard site is this weekend, Chassidus, together with Yud Tes Kislev
Chaim, you mentioned his mother, so actually we have a special connection. We grew up on the same block. The difference is he grew up, I didn't. So, and our mothers have a. Actually, I was saying they should have a lichtike Gan Eden, but really it's time to come back down.
That's why they don't come back.
They should come down. They should come back down. Everybody always says the neshama should have an aliyah. It's about time the neshama comes back to the ultimate aliyah, which is the yerida, will come back down. I want to start by telling you a story. I don't do good with competition. That's why I'm in business. I'll tell you a story. There were these two friends, avid adventurers, and they decided they're going to try out hot air ballooning. I think it's fun. I never tried, and I'm not planning to. But anyway, they're up there on the hot air balloon, and it's beautiful. It's fantastic. They're floating there in the air. They see beautiful landscapes, waters, communities. And after several hours, Jack realizes he's got a problem. Their navigation system totally crapped out. They don't know where they are. How do they get it back? Where do they go? So they frantically start looking for a solution. And they're floating around and they're hoping maybe they'll see a person. But all they see is empty land. And finally they come to an area and they can see a small little tiny dot, a shadow moving. And they figure that must be a person. So they lower themselves lower and lower and lower and lower. So finally, Jack screams out to this guy and he says, "Hey, sir, can you tell me where we are?" The guy looks up and he says, "You're on a hot air balloon." Forget it. They're not going to have any luck with this guy. So they lift themselves back up. And Jack says to his friend Joe, Joe, I can bet you $10,000 that that man was a rabbi. How do you know? You don't even know who the guy is. You don't know who you are. He says, I can tell you why. Because whatever he said is absolutely true, but totally irrelevant. And the point is, why am I starting with this story? You start a Farbrengen with a story like that? Because the point of a Farbrengen, and unfortunately it can happen many times, when people come and people don't realize what is a Farbrengen. What does it mean? What are we going to do by a Farbrengen? Is it a lecture? No. Is it just a get-together? No. What is meant to happen by a Farbrengen? In other words, what are we here for? What are we trying to achieve? Yes, we're celebrating Yud Tes Kislev. We'll talk about it. It's an amazing day, a wonderful event. But what are we here for? What do we need to take from this? What are we going to take from this? And that actually is the whole purpose. What are we going to come out from this Farbrengen with? If we sit by a Farbrengen and hear nice stories, beautiful anecdotes, insights, but we leave the same way we came in, then it was not a successful Farbrengen. It was a nice lecture, it was nice sermons, nice storytelling, but it's not a Farbrengen. A Farbrengen is something that sometimes, by a Farbrengen, you don't even hear something new. You don't really hear something new, but you get inspired. You can hear something that you knew 1,000 times already. But if you get inspired, you come out, you leave a different person. You made a resolution to become better. To become better doesn't mean to totally transform your whole life, your whole self. But to become better, to change something. To make even a little tiny scratch in your normal, regular rhythm of life that's a Farbrengen. That's a successful Farbrengen. You know, there was a mashpia in Yerushalayim many, many years ago. And his beautiful family today, descendants, actually one of his great-grandchildren lives in Florida. His name was Rabbi Alter Rebbe. And he was a known mashpia in Yerushalayim. He hails originally from Russia. And he was Farbrengen. But after a while, a lot of the young students they didn't want to go to his Farbrengens. Why? Because they told him, they said, Rabbi, every Farbrengen, you speak about the same things. Every single Farbrengen, you repeat the same things. So he said to them, what's the problem? They said, we want to hear something new. We want to hear something new, exciting. So he told them in Yiddish. He said, if you have this nice, you want to hear like something new, and something new is also like the word news, comes from the word new. For that, you buy a newspaper. For that, you can buy a newspaper. You don't need me. By the Farbrengen, we hear sometimes to go over, or as they say, regurgitate the exact same things he spoke about last time, and the time before, and the time before. But the point is that we have to internalize it, and it has to affect us. And sometimes, for some people, it's the first time. For some people, it can be the 10th time. And some people, it can be 100 times later. But the fact is that you go over something, we're not here to hear news. If you turn on the news, or you buy a newspaper, whatever it is, however you get your news, you go online, and you hear news like, America won World War II, or that they had D-Day or something, you're going to shut it down right away. Because you don't want to read history, you want to read news. When you come to Farbrengen, we're here to get something. We're here to get truth. And truth is something that needs to affect us. It has to become part of us. There's a story, there's a great mashpia. It was called the Rashbatz. Rashbatz is the acronym for Reb Shmuel Betzalel. He was a very, very special person. In fact, he was so special that the Lubavitcher Rebbe's chose him to be the Mechanchim. Mechanchim means to be the mentors, to be the guides, the teachers of their children. So the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe was raised basically by this great chassid, and then later his son, his only son, who we know as the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, was also raised by him. And the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, this is how we know about this, shares very fondly. He shares many, many stories and anecdotes and instruction, hadracha, that he received from his beloved mentor, from his beloved Rebbe. One of the many stories is very apropos for what we're talking about. Says a story, and he would call it, his Rabbi, the Rashbatz, would say that when you learn something in Chassidus, or when you come to a Farbrengen, you need to apply it, and he said in Yiddish, not like notes from someone else, or letters from somebody else. What is the story? Well, you know, in yesteryear, in the days of old, there were many God-fearing, good, sweet Jews that lived in the villages, in the small towns, and they had farms, they had inns, they had taverns. They were very, very God-fearing, very good Jews, very warm Jews, but unfortunately, because of their life situation, most of them were very, very ignorant. They even barely knew how to read. Some of them could barely get through a siddur, but certainly they couldn't read a letter, even though they spoke Yiddish, they spoke the language, or they couldn't read a letter and comprehend it. But one day, this villager, this simpleton, he receives a letter, and he can tell that it came from the city, a distant city where his father lives. So he took the letter to where? To who did he go to? He needs someone to read it for him. He's very eager to know what's in the letter. And the Rashbatz tells the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, he went to the Melamed. Each of these towns, they would get together and they would hire a Melamed. Melamed is a teacher, a rabbi, who may have not been the greatest rabbi in the world, the most knowledgeable, but for them, compared to where they were, he was always a genius. He knew everything. So if they had any issues, they had to learn something, they had to know if this is allowed or not, or in this case, they have to read a letter. So they go to him. So he comes to this gentleman, and he says to him, whatever his name is, Reb Zalman, please, if you can take a moment, read the letter for me. Reb Zalman puts on his glasses, takes the letter, unfolds it, and he starts to read. And you know what the letter was all about? What was this letter about? This letter was notifying him that unfortunately his father had passed away. And the Melamed is reading, this nice rabbi is reading the letter, and as he's reading the letter, this villager fainted. He fell to the ground, he fainted. Great agony, he just found out. Imagine the pain, the sorrow. He just found out that his father died, and he fainted. Now let's analyze this for a second. Who read the letter? Who understood the letter? Who had access to what's written in the letter? The Melamed, the rabbi. Who fainted? Who got affected by it? The villager. Why did that happen? How did that happen? Because the villager, it was his father. And it was connected to him. It was him. It had everything to do with him. The Melamed, the teacher, a nice guy, and I'm sure he had compassion and sympathy for this Melamed, for this simple person, but it's not his father. It didn't affect him. And that is the point. If come to Farbrengen, we can hear beautiful stories, fantastic stories about the Alter Rebbe, about Chassidim, about Chassidism, beautiful stuff. But if we hear it, if we listen to it, and all we get is someone else's letters, someone else's stories, even though they're inspiring, even though they're meaningful, but we might not walk away. We might not come out with the effect that we're supposed to come out with. So I want to suggest something. Let me start to get warmed up a little bit. Okay here? Yeah. Good lecture so far? No? I don't want to give a lecture. I don't give lectures. I don't know how to do that. What? Farbrengen. So I want to suggest the following. You know, the whole story of Yud Tes Kislev is because of the opposition to Chassidism. Because there were so many who were opposed to the spreading of Chassidus, and perhaps even originally they had good reason for it. In other words, they were suspicious of this new movement. And unfortunately, throughout history, every time there was a new movement in Judaism, sadly, it ended up very, very ugly and terribly took many Jews away from Judaism. And that's what they were concerned about. Of course, with time, Chassidus proved itself, and it was clear and obvious that not only this is not a threat to Judaism, but in fact, what does Chassidus do? It enhances Judaism. It's going to build Judaism up. One of the many things that the Misnagdim, they use the word Misnagdim, the term, Misnagdim means those who are opposed. Those who were opposed to Chassidus. One of the many things that the Misnagdim were able to catch on to and use as proof, as clear, obvious evidence that the Chassidim are trying to distort the Torah, that they're trying to break down the norms of our tradition, was the fact that there was an amazing insight that actually originates with the Baal Shem Tov, but was made very famous by the Alter Rebbe. In fact, if you look in the Maimorei Chassidus, if you look in some discourses of Chassidus in Torah or in one of the main, we say, textbooks of the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus, he actually brings this quote. He actually brings this in. He quotes this insight. What was this insight? There is a statement, a law in Masechet Shabbat. You know that there is Mishnah. What is Mishnah? The basis of the Talmud. Mishnah is basically Jewish law, right? What you could do, what you can't do, what you should do, right? What you're recommended to do, and so on. Then you have a whole tractate, which happens to be the biggest one, and that's on the laws of Shabbat. We all know that Shabbat is one of the most complex things. Well, there is a section there, one of the chapters, that discusses what an animal could go out with and what it cannot go out with. You see, the Torah instructs us, I'm giving you the background so you understand it. The Torah instructs us, if you look in the Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments, where the Torah originally tells us to keep the Shabbat, the Torah says that you should keep the day of Shabbat holy. You, your wife, your son, your daughter, and no one should do any work. Not you, not your children, not your spouse, not your children, not even your servant and your animal. So we have to see to it that the animals also keep Shabbat to an extent, meaning we cannot deliberately and willingly have the animal carry out tasks on Shabbat. So therefore, there's a discussion, what is considered, just like a human being is not allowed to carry outside, transport things from one domain to another or outside in a public domain when there is no Eruv, right? I believe here you have an Eruv, right? So likewise, your animal cannot carry anything. You cannot load up your animal and say it's walking on its own. No, it's doing work and it's your animal, so you have to see to it that it doesn't do any work. So there is one of the many halachot there that says, Kol Baalei Hashir. Actually, the word is Asher, but it's spelled like Shir. All animals that typically have a collar and a leash, that means that it's normal for them to walk around with a chain, a small chain dangling from their neck, or a rope. Yotzim b'sher, v'nichnasim b'sher. In that case, for them, it's considered like a garment. It's considered that it's a normal thing. It's not considered as if they're carrying, as if they're committing a task on Shabbat, and therefore, they're allowed to walk around with it on Shabbat freely. So what is this all about? This is all about halakha on Shabbat. For the Chassidut is a much deeper insight to this statement. And Chassidut reads it, Kol Baalei Hashir. What does the word shir mean? Song. All those who master song, Yotzim b'shir, you can go out through a song, meaning you can go out from your present state. Then you can go into a whole different level. You can go into a whole different realm through song. And that's why song, melodies are so important in Chassidut. So what happened? You can imagine the great fun that all the Misnagdim had with this. Because this is total and absolute, what we call Amharatzut. This is an ignoramus would translate this. It has nothing to do with song, right? It talks about an animal. I gave you the whole background. It talks about what an animal is allowed to wear or not. And here suddenly, look what the Hasidim do. They go and distort things. That was their claim, right? Hasidism is creating a whole new version of Judaism that doesn't exist. That doesn't even make sense. How can this make sense? The Alter Rebbe was not one to just sit and cower in fear. He was not one to just hide in his little cocoon with his Hasidim, but rather the Alter Rebbe volunteered and traveled, and he went to some of the, what we call the capitals of the Misnagdim. He went to some of the major famous cities where they were the hubs for the opposition to Chassidus, and he volunteered to publicly explain to them and answer all those critique and all the opposition and questions that they had against Chassidus. And here the Alter Rebbe was in Shklov. Shklov was almost like Vilna. We know the Vilna Goyim, right? And the Vilna camp. They were the greatest opponents to Chassidus. Shklov was perhaps second. Maybe you could say, Vilna was like Washington, D.C., and Shklov was New York. It was the capital, one of the main fortifications of the opposition to Chassidus. And at least we could say that they were menschlich. At least they had the courtesy of not, God forbid, beating up the Alter Rebbe and not harming him. And they allowed him to come to the city and go to the main shul, to the main Bet Midrash, and publicly he asked questions and explained it to them. When it came to this question, what kind of stupidity is this? What kind of idiocy is this? You take a verse, you take one statement from the Mishnah and totally distort it. It has nothing to do with song. And here you make this whole big deal out of it, and this becomes a prominent thing in Hasidism to make songs based on this. What kind of stupidness is that? What kind of craziness is it? It's ridiculous. And the Alter Rebbe smiled. And Alter Rebbe said to them, I can explain the answer to you. But what I'll do, I'll sing a niggun. The Alter Rebbe started to sing a niggun. There's a version that says that it was a famous niggun, which we should sing tonight, because we're allowed to, because it's a special occasion. This niggun of the 4 stanzas of the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe sang it with great devakus. And when the Alter Rebbe was done, he finished his speech, his song. He went down from the bima and walked towards the exit of the shul. And the song was so inspiring. It was so riveting. And it touched the souls of so many present that a flock of the greatest learners, the greatest minds, these were no simpletons. These were heavy hitters. We're talking about Talmudical scholars, people that studied 16, 17 hours a day of Talmud. They were really, really into it. They just were mesmerized by it, and they just followed it, and they all became Chassidim. I think after that, they never asked them this question again. It was too scary for them. Right? It backfired. So that's why when you come to a Farbrengen, right, it's not a lecture. You don't just sit here and listen. Right? When I was a kid, I thought that the reason why you have these intervals of singing because people can't keep their attention span for a long time. I thought everybody's like me. 5, 10 minutes and I'm done. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? 10 minutes max. 12 is like a miracle. And the answer is not so. Because when you hear inspiring words, you need to have them absorb in the soul. It has to go seep into the soul, into the heart. And if it doesn't, then it's just a nice lecture, right? It's nice words. I have news for you. Anybody ever see any of those inspiring, motivating speakers? You have these self-motivators, right? These people who get there and they can fill up a stadium, right? They fill up a stadium and they make a lot of money. They do very well. And the people who are there, as they're speaking, 99.9% of the people are there and they are inspired. They are motivated. They are moved. They're literally moving off their seats. You know how much of that is retained? By the time they reach the exits after the whole thing is over? I don't know the exact numbers, but I think you'd agree with me. 50, 60% of it is already gone. As the person was speaking, they go, oh, I'm going to make changes and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then the next 30, 40%, by the time they reach their cars, right? They find the cars in the parking lot. And the little that's left, the 10%, how many of those really make a change, a difference in their life? Because it's words. And they're right words, they're correct words, right? Remember, it's like that guy in the balloon story. Everything he said is true, but it's totally irrelevant. We need to make it relevant. So we need to start with a good niggin, a warm-up niggin, to really get the heart, to get the soul moving, right? And of course, there's no shortage of nigunim. You know, the Alter Rebbe himself, this great, tremendous scholar, unparalleled mystic, he himself composed 10 nigunim. Some of them are not that well known, but some of them, I think we all know them. We sing them throughout the year, and maybe many people don't even know that the Alter Rebbe composed it. So let's start with a niggun that everybody knows. And if really, when you sing it a few times. It's the tune of it. You see how it just takes some of those layers off the soul and allows the soul to breathe a little bit and to start to now absorb. Now remember why I chose to be a rabbi, not a chazan. What? Everybody agrees with you, right? I'm not changing. It's fine. My family knows that if I ever decide to sing, I'll make money on the first night. Everybody will give me a lot of money to get down, and I'll try it. Okay? I want to say l'chaim, l'chaim. You know, everybody strives well on compliments, especially when they're true and they're real. And I want to say, I'm looking here and I say, wow, there's almost more women than men. And I have to give you a special compliment. We'll talk about later the power of the woman and the special connection to Yud Tes Kislev, especially to what we're celebrating now. You stay long enough, like 12, 1 o'clock, that's what I plan. No? But I say it's very special because it doesn't, it's not like it's lost on me. Tonight is Thursday night, tomorrow is a short Friday, and here to see real Chassidus women, this is amazing. Thursday night, men, an excuse to get out of the house. I mean, I wasn't supposed to say that. Okay, but Farbrengen, we need it. But to women to come and drop everything, the whole house, and the preparations for Shabbos, and then maybe many of you work tomorrow, and to come to listen to Farbrengen, they try to get inspired and so on. That's something very, very special. So, hi. There was a great chassid. His name was Reb Brashevitzki. Reb Brashevitzki was a very, very close and dedicated chassid, close chassid with the previous Rebbe. Very, very famous. He was a tremendous, tremendous scholar. And the previous Rebbe appointed him to be one of his right-hand men. And then later he sent him to run one of the branches. I'll explain in a moment. One of the satellite branches of Tomchei Tmimim. You know what Tomchei Tmimim is? Tomchei Tmimim is the Lubavitch Yeshiva system, which was founded by the 5th Lubavitch Rebbe and the previous Rebbe. And why do I say one of the satellite branches? Because unfortunately, ever since the revolution in Russia in 1917, the yeshiva, although it remained a system of yeshiva and it had a leader, it had the Rebbe as a leader, but unfortunately, because of the circumstances and because of the communism and the communist voice, that they were dead set on destroying Judaism, dead set on uprooting especially Chabad Chassidism, that it was impossible to have the yeshiva in one central location. Not only was it impossible, it was literally dangerous. Literally, it was a matter of life and death. So they had to split up the yeshiva, and even the places that they had a yeshiva, they had 10 students in one place, 20 in another, 30 in another, 5 in another. All these cities they kept on moving around. Because every time they were discovered by the KGB, they had to now find a different location. And in many cases, they had to find a totally new city. And sadly, this was the reality that they lived in. We call it Mesirut Nefesh, total and absolute self-sacrifice for Yiddishkeit, for the study of Torah, for Chassidus on a daily basis, literally minute by minute. Every minute was literally wrought in absolute selfless dedication. Anyway, the Chacha, who was a great, great master of Chassidus and a great mashpia, a great mentor, they were sitting there in a cellar. Okay, in Florida, you don't know what it is, but we don't have basements. You have to go a little too deep. You can have your own private mikvah, right? Right? Yeah, New York, right. So they're sitting there by a Farbrengen, literally by candlelight, several young students in their teens, with total absolute dedication, total and absolute devotion. And a Chacha is Farbrengen with them. And what is he talking to them about? He's talking about the fact that there needs to be a change. There needs to be a movement. The way they are right now, it's too stagnant. Their tefillah, their prayers, their spiritual vigor is not there. There's no excitement. And he was pushing them and trying to move them. Now, while they're sitting there,
Who's he saying this to?
to the boys, to the students, young people who on any given day are absolute fantastic servants of Hashem. You imagine they're endangering their life every single day. This is, remember, take into account, they're far away from home, there's no communication, they don't know what's with their parents don't know what's with them, and they're totally removed from all that, and their whole focus is, and in, day out, with very, very little provisions, because you can understand, in such a situation, it wasn't like they had a kitchen and a whole system to feed the boys and a proper dormitory and everything. Everything was total chaos. And yet they were studying and everything. He wasn't coming down on them because he was negative to them, but he was trying to move them, to bring them to the next level. Now, as he's speaking to them, because of the situation, it was only natural that they had to always have a lookout. One of the students would always have to volunteer, and they would rotate. Nobody wanted to miss the Farbrengen, but they needed to have somebody standing at a very calculated spot to be able to look out down the street if there were any police coming. Because if someone smelled them out, somebody somehow figure out that there's some activity going on, that's it. But if you got advance notice, at least a couple of minutes, a minute or two, you can escape. They would run through the windows. They had their escape routes. You know, when you build a building, you have a school, you have to always have an escape route. You have to know what the evacuation route is. Well, wherever they were, whether it was a Farbrengen, or studying Talmud, or studying Chassidus or praying, they always knew, you know, where they're going to go if there's any whatsoever suspicion of the KGB officers, you know, approaching. And here, the Chacha is sitting 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour, an hour, and he's talking to them. They're singing Nigunim. And he's trying to really, as you know, like you need to go. He's trying to get it into them. He's trying to get them awakened, aroused, to shake them, to move them. And suddenly, the young student who was there at that very special vantage point, he suspected, he noticed something, someone approaching, a group of 2 or 3, he doesn't know, but it could very well be a couple of KGB officers. So immediately he ran in and he said, immediately folded everything up, and everybody ran in all directions. You know, one hid here, one ran out of there, one ran down the street, one jumped over the railing and climbed over the roof and went to the next building. Everybody sprung into action. Not within a second, within a split second. In a few seconds, you couldn't tell that anything had taken place there a few moments ago. They waited a while, and after about a half hour, this boy came back, and he gave him the all clear. It turned out to be a false alarm. It wasn't the KGB agents they thought. So they got all back together, took out the mashka, took out the food, sat down, whatever they had there, and now they're back around the same table that they were just a little over a half hour ago. And this is when Reb Chacha started to really rip into them. And he said, I was talking to you about your spiritual well-being. I was talking to you about improving. I was talking to you about getting excited, getting invigorated, getting to the next level. Not even a tear was shed. There was no movement. But in 1 second, as soon as you heard that there's a danger, which is a legitimate danger, potentially, God forbid, I don't even want to say the words, what it could have brought to. In a second, action. Everything. You just sprung to life. Everything. You That's, he said to them, that's how you have to work on your spiritual well-being. It has to actually matter to you. And if it really, really matters to you to that extent, then when you sit by a Farbrengen, you hear inspiring words, it's not, oh, very nice. Rabbi spoke very well. What did he say? I don't know. Which is, by the way, most sermons. You come stand by any real big shul with the rabbi delivered. Wow, he spoke well today. What did he say? What's the point? What did you learn? I don't know. I actually heard this many, many years ago. Is that true? What? No, not him. He doesn't give sermons. He prays. Very true. Right? So, you know, I heard this actually once from like 25 years ago. But yeah, you have to learn from everyone. From a conservative rabbi, so-called rabbi. He told me a good story. He said, like 2 days before Yom Kippur, the board of the shul calls in the rabbi for an emergency meeting. I said, What happened? Who calls the rabbi 2 days before Yom Kippur? Says, Rabbi, we got one thing on the agenda. As soon as they call the meeting to order, Rabbi, listen. Last year, the year before, and the year before that, you delivered the exact same sermon for Kol Nidre. And we realized in 2 days is Kol Nidre, and we're scared you're going to deliver the exact same sermon. So Rabbi said, what's the problem with that? He says, Rabbi, we heard it already. I mean, come on. So he said, okay, gentlemen, I'll ask you, can anybody tell me what was the point of my sermon? You'll hear it again. Okay? And that's the point. If it doesn't give us a move, a joke, right? But not a joke that we run away, but a joke that ignites the spark, that actually brings, lights that little pilot light, right? That actually brings some life to our service of Hashem, to our love for a fellow Jew, to our excitement about doing a mitzvah. And it's nice, beautiful stories. They laughed a little bit. I got a little attention, right? We got some nice, interesting anecdotes, but we wasted our time, right? That's not what it's about, correct? So what we need to do, we need to inspire each other. What does the word Farbrengen mean? Anybody knows what the word Farbrengen means?
Yes.
What? Yes. In Yiddish, to Farbrengen literally means to spend time together. To have a good time. In other words, in Chabad, Hasidic circles, right? Farbrengen is a concept. Farbrengen is a whole way of life. But in real, raw Yiddish, if you speak Yiddish, Farbrengen is like saying, okay, let's go hang out. Right? Imagine in English, imagine we call this a hangout. What's that about? Right? In fact, there's a great rabbi, I'm sure you all heard of him, Rabbi Steinsaltz, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz. And he shared that when he got involved with Chabad, and he came close to Chassidus, and once one of his friends, who was, he did a good job, trying to hook him in and kind of bring him into Chabad, bring him into the world of Chassidus, did a very good job. And he said to him, he was pushing him, let's go to a Farbrengen. And he always refused, because he thought to himself, here I'm trying to be serious, I'm trying to learn more, I'm trying to become advanced in my service of Hashem, and this guy is telling me that let's go hang out. So finally he asked him once, why are you so intent on bringing me to Farbrengen? I don't have time to waste. He was a big scholar. I barely have enough time to study what I want to study. Why should I go hang out? So the guy realized he didn't understand what a Farbrengen is. He says, listen, I can't really explain to you the true meaning of Farbrengen. You have to go to one and be at a Farbrengen in order to appreciate what the true meaning of a Farbrengen is. That you spend time together. It's not a lecture. It's not a class. You don't have any text that we're reading from. If you do, it's not a Farbrengen. You talk from the heart. In fact, I heard a very, very good instructions for Farbrengen. Did you ever hear about the great famous Chassid, Reb Mendel Futterfass? Great, great famous Chassid. So he said that he got instruction for Reb Mendel how you go to Farbrengen, because he said that he, was asked to go speak by the Farbrengen, and he said, Reb Mendel, what do I do? Reb Mendel was known to be a good Farbrengener. When he led a Farbrengen, sometimes he didn't even say it. Just the presence, just the warmth, the electricity connecting. Today we understand and we appreciate that you don't need to have an actual physical wire to connect from one end to another to be able to conduct energy, to be able to have the flow, right, of spirits, right? We understand. We have remote, you have this, you can connect. Just him being there was already, wow. It brought energy. It brought that spiritual life in the room. But still, he did speak and he did share stories. So he asked him, Mendel, how do you Farbrengen? So he told him, you have to prepare. So he says, you make some notes about what you're going to say, and then you come to the Farbrengen and you talk about something totally different. Why? Because And that, by the way, I always have this issue. I'm like, how can somebody, when people come to an emotional occasion, I always have this is a personal thing, and they have a speech that they prepared 3 days ago. How do I know 3 days ago what I'm going to feel at this occasion? That's what Farbrengen. It's natural. It flows. Of course, you have an idea. You want to talk about. We're not going to talk about Mickey Mouse. We're talking about, right? But you don't follow a script. Farbrengen is the connecting of the souls, the connecting of the hearts, and that creates the atmosphere. That actually makes the ambiance. It doesn't have to be in a fancy room. You notice, you make a Farbrengen, you don't put flowers and all decor. Plain simple plates, plain simple forks, plain simple cups, because it's not about that. It's about connecting to the soul, and the soul's connecting to each other. And that creates the ambiance. That creates the mood. That creates the moments. And that's what we have to do. Who's in charge of the good?
Rabbi,
Yes.
can I mention something?
That's what I was going to say. Everybody should share something.
So I just happened to have read this.
Wait, let's say, can I ask you? Okay, I'll say what time. Fine.
So I actually, on Monday night, I have a class with a couple of young ladies on the phone. So since it's a week of Yud Tes, we read what has been the sichel from the Rebbe. So he said a very interesting thing. He said that the Dia B'Shalom, the being safe in peace, of the Alter Rebbe is connected to the Dia B'Shalom of David Malka, of David Melech.
Yeah.
So he was reading that in the verses of Tehillim, that's what he was saying at the time, and especially to Mashiach Atzmo. In other words, the Mashiach of our time. Yud Tes Kislev has a very special connection to that in the Mashiach himself.
I don't know why he called me. I could have said it better.
I know. No, because it's the holiday, the celebration of Chassidus. So it says, what did the Baal Shem Tov say?
Right. 100%. We'll talk about that. And see, that's the thing. That's what I'm bringing. It flows. It's just, you can't predict. Oh, I'm going to say this, and then spontaneous, like the spontaneous dancing at the Genesis Shloshim. I know. Anyway, so let's sing together another nigun of the Alter Rebbe. Again, I'm sure you know this nigun. I'm sure you know it very well, and it's so apropos because you know that the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. What did he say about this day? The fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe revealed. He revealed. He didn't create anything new. He didn't invent anything new. But rather, he revealed to all of us Chassidim, and this becomes the highlight of Yud Tes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, that he said this is the Rosh Hashanah for Chassidut, the Rosh Hashanah for Chassidism. And therefore, on Rosh Hashanah, what do we sing? Avinu Malkeinu, right? And who composed that nigun? The Alter Rebbe. Okay, so it's appropriate. We have to sing a nigun, and to sing a nigun of the Alter Rebbe. And we have to say Rosh Hashanah. So, but I do want to give you a blessing because I heard a great saying about Avinu Malkeinu. First of all, does anybody know? I want to know if we have any avid prayer, any avid daveners here. Anybody know how many Avinu Malkeinus there are? What? There's a lot? Get out of here. We're a monotheistic religion. There's only one Avinu Malkeinu. How many do we say? Many. I don't know the number. Just remember that. There's one Avinu Malkeinu. Please. Let's not make any mistakes about that. There's no Trinity, none of that stuff.
Barbra Streisand?
What?
Barbra Streisand sang it?
No. Her and England actually singing down the street. I heard it best told. Yeah, but here we'll sing down the Rebbe. Okay? But why do you say Avinu Malkeinu? I heard a good saying, and I want to, by Farbrengen, it's also a time you should know. And if anybody needs a bracha, if anybody needs any blessing for yourselves, for anyone you need, for anyone you know, you should know that the power of a Chassidish Farbrengen, and these are words not just murmured by Chassidim, which also has its place, certainly. If it's said by enough people, it becomes the truth, right? But the fact is that the Rebbe's repeated it. The fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe explicitly said it, that what a Chassidic Farbrengen can accomplish, even Malach Michael, who is the defending angel in heaven, The angel of blessings. Even Malach V'chol cannot accomplish. And there's a story associated with it. You want to hear the story? Or you want to see the song? You want to hear the story? So there was a Farbrengen of Chassidim going on. And this is in Russia. In times of the Rebbe Marash, and we're not talking about communism, this is way before communism, the fourth Chabad Rebbe. But still, life then was different than it is today. Today, we live in a 24/7 life. Oh, I thought they things to me. We live in a 24-hour cycle, right? People don't sleep. People are up all the time. There's lights on all the time. But you know the way it was in the normal world back then. At night, all shops were closed, right? There was nowhere to buy anything. There was nowhere to get anything. If you were stuck, you were stuck. If you didn't have something, you had to wait for the next day until the sun rose again.
Nothing to buy.
Nothing to buy. Nowhere to buy. No, I'm just saying there was everything. People went to sleep at night, except of course the Chabad Chassidim. They're sitting up Farbrengen. So you have Chassidim by Farbrengen, and the Farbrengen was going really well. And one of the good signs that were very telling, this Farbrengen went very well, was the mashke, the l'chaim's totally gone. Whatever they anticipated, whatever they had on the table, it was all gone. We're not talking about people getting drunk about that's crazy. We're talking about a serious Farbrengen where the l'chaim is like when you're going a long road trip, right? You need fuel. Okay? You need fuel. Electricity, whatever kind of car you're driving. So you have to replenish it, right? And as you go, it kind of goes down, it depletes, and then you have to fill up again. The Chaim is there to give a little fuel for the animalistic soul, to go along with it, go along for the ride, to be there. So when the soul tries to inspire it, that it's still there. It hasn't fallen or, fallen off the track way back there. Anyway, the L'chaims were finished, and the Chassidim are sitting there, and they're looking, where are you supposed to get more butter now? Nowhere. One of the Chassidim, in fact, the Chassid in whose house was this Farbrengen, unfortunately, he and his wife were married for many years, and they weren't blessed with children. They were not blessed with children. And many times, they'd asked the Rebbe for a bracha, for a blessing for children, but unfortunately, as it's apparent in the story, the Rebbe was not able to help them. I guess he saw up there, a blessing means that you pull it down. He wasn't able to do anything for them. And unfortunately, time was ticking, and they're getting older. And this was a heavy, heavy stone, a heavy weight on their heart. And the woman of the house, she noticed the predicament the Chassidim were in, and she came in and she gave him an offer that he can't refuse. She said to them, Chassidim, if I go out there and find mashka, I'll go get some mashka, so you're going to continue for bringing. Will you bless me? Promise me that I'm going to have a child. The Chassidim, Baruch Hashem, lucky for her, were under the influence, and they wanted to continue doing that. I think it was very exciting. The Farbrengen was a very good Farbrengen. And the Chassidim said to her, absolutely. If you bring the mashka, we're going to give you a bracha that you're going to have children. And we promise you're going to have children. Okay? She went out there. She knew which of the peasants store alcohol in the house. I think it's dangerous to wake up a peasant in the middle of the night. She took the risk. She knocked on his door. No answer. She banged on his door. Finally, there's an answer. And she said to him, Davai vodka. Give me some alcohol. And she paid him very well and generously. And she brought enough that they continued to bring it until the wee hours of the morning. And true to the word, the Chassidim that were present, they blessed her. They promised her that she's going to have a child. The next day, this was reported to the Rebbe Marash, the same Rebbe who year after year was not able to give him a blessing. And the Rebbe became very reserved. Very serious. And then the Rebbe said that it's a known fact that what a Farbrengen can accomplish, even Malach Michal, even the angel Michal cannot accomplish, cannot do. And since the Chassidim, by a Farbrengen, by a true Farbrengen, they promised her she's going to have a child. And that's what we know, that this is true. So when you have a Farbrengen, when they have together, you should know, just the fact that Jews are sitting together and not fighting is a very good thing. I think we have a lot of points just for that, right? But it's a Farbrengen. It's a Farbrengen. There's warmth, there's energy, the hearts are connected, the souls are connected. So it's a time for blessings. So before we begin this song, I want to tell you that I heard a great saying, and I wish this upon you, upon myself also, upon all those who need a bracha. Why do we say Avinu Malkeinu? Avinu means our father. Malkeinu means our king. Make up your mind. Is your father or is your king? It could be both. But what's the emphasis here? Of course, there's much meaning. It's true. But someone said to me as follows. What's a father? A parent. What does a parent want to do for their child? Everything. Right? A child asks for something. A true parent, a good father, wants to give everything to the child. However, there's a problem sometimes. Not every father, not every mother is capable of giving their child everything. Because sometimes they don't have access to it. On the other hand, the king, unlimited resources. King can do whatever he wants. And he has access to great wealth. So we bring both together. The king not necessarily wants to give. In fact, the king, by design, by nature, is aloof. He doesn't want to give. There's a certain distance. Ego, whatever it is. Romemut, whatever you call it. So we bring both together. Hashem, we want you to give us like a father wants to give us. And we want to receive, and we want you to give us like a king is capable of giving us. We want to hear stories, jokes. What would you like to hear? What I want to say? What I want to say? Sorry, I'm not a good salesman. So I want to say l'chaim. Okay, now that we gave the whole introductions, I tried to sing the song. You know it's bad though, you can hear my voice on top of the other ones. It's not good. But what are we celebrating tonight? Why are we here? In other words, let me explain my question. If I can read minds here, I think some people are just shy to give the answer. What they're thinking to answer is celebrating the Alter Rebbe's release from prison. Would you agree with that? Yes. Yeah. Sounds right. Yeah. So I want to ask you a question. Do you think that the Alter Rebbe needs us to celebrate for him? What? He's a big boy, really big, and he was able to. If he wants to celebrate, he doesn't need me to celebrate for him. He doesn't need you. I mean, maybe you, but me certainly he doesn't need.
It's for us to celebrate.
What are we here to do? We're here to celebrate. We're here, like I said before, to celebrate and thus invigorate ourselves. Think about it. You have a Jewish calendar, right? You have a Jewish calendar. You look at the calendar, next week is Hanukkah. Hanukkah is going to happen, and Hanukkah is Hanukkah, whether you choose to light the candles or not, whether you choose to eat donuts or not. No, I don't think it'll be real Hanukkah. No. Okay, latkes, whatever. Then you go to Purim, you go to Pesach. God forbid if a Jew decides I'm on strike, I'm not celebrating. Is that going to change anything as far as Pesach is concerned? It's not going to be Pesach because this Jew is not eating matzah. So why are we celebrating? Why are we celebrating? Because we're given an opportunity to take advantage, to absorb, to enjoy the special revelations, the special energy of that particular festival.
It's a memory.
But it happened whether I remember it or not. In other words, if I don't eat matzah and bitter herbs on the night of Pesach, the Jews didn't leave Egypt. We're going to turn the clock back and they're not leaving Egypt. They left Egypt already. It happened.
But it's
Why am I?
to repeat?
Why? So why did Hashem tell us to repeat it? Why did Hashem tell us to celebrate it? And if we forget what's going to happen, they didn't leave Egypt. The answer is because there's something happening.
It's not past, it's present.
Exactly. I don't know why you brought me here. No, she's good.
She knows the answer.
That's exactly the point. Something is happening. Every year when it comes Pesach, every year when it comes Hanukkah, every year when it comes Yud Tes Kislev, it is happening again. We are given a special privilege and opportunity to plug into this energy, to connect to it, and therefore do something with it. You think about it, by the way, you know, the way the Chabad Rabbi, the way the Chabad Rebbe described this special day of Yud Tes Kislev, the way the Alter Rebbe described this day, he didn't say this is my redemption, but in fact the Rebbe is always referred to it as our redemption, the redemption of our souls. And by the way, I have news for you. I have to tell you something. Don't think for a moment, don't imagine for a moment that the Alter Rebbe was really suffering in the literal sense while he was in prison. Although it was a long time, he didn't see his family. The Alter Rebbe was in prison a total of 53 days. Anybody know the significance of 53? The 53 chapters of the Tanya.
Well, yes, but the Tanya, chapters in the Tanya, it was 53 and 53 days in jail.
Right. So 53 chapters correspond, 53 days correspond to 53 chapters. This was breaking through obstacles every day, a day per chapter. But the Alter Rebbe, in fact, the Alter Rebbe, there's an amazing story with Alter Rebbe himself describes. You can read between the lines, and you get an appreciation that not only the Alter Rebbe was not suffering, the Alter Rebbe himself was in such a spiritual high that he actually needed something to hold on. You know, when you have, like, if you're, I was never a helium balloon, but I can only imagine if you're a helium balloon, you had hands, and the person lets go of the string, you want to grab onto something because you're just going higher and higher, and you don't want to just disappear. And the story, of course, is, we all know the famous story, but this is part of the story, part of the, I call the ritual of Yud Tes Kislev, is that you say over the story. You know, the previous Rebbe describes that he had an uncle, a great uncle, that by the official Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen, Seuda, the feast of the family, you know, you have to make a meal. You have to make an elaborate feast. He used to go over the entire story of Yud Tes Kislev, similar to what we do on Purim. We read over the exact same story, to the extent, the previous Rebbe describes, to the extent that if somebody came late and walked in the middle, he would start the story over again. I think that person wasn't welcome for the rest of the year. I imagine. But it was so important to go over the stories that they knew, that they heard the year before and the year before that and so on. So this story I'm going to tell you, I'm sure many of you or most of you already heard it, but this is just to illustrate and to bring out the point. The Rebbe points it out that the Alter Rebbe was actually on a spiritual high. He was having the greatest time of his life while he was in prison. I'm leading it wide. We all know the famous story that one of the ministers, who actually happened to be a very, very learned, very well biblically and also Talmudically educated person. He was not Jewish, but he knew a lot. And he came to the Alter Rebbe, and immediately, you can tell that this is not some kind of criminal. This is not some kind of revolutionary. This is a very, very godly and holy man. And he engaged with the Alter Rebbe. And of course, we know the famous question he asked him. He said, Rabbi, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. He said, you know, in Bereshit, right there in Genesis, describes what happened after Adam and Chava, after Adam and Eve ate from that fruit. And it says that they hid because they heard Hashem approaching. And Hashem called out, and it says, Vayomer El Ha'adam. He said to the man, to the Adam. It doesn't say Vayomer El Adam, to the person named Adam, but it says Vayomer El Ha'adam. Ayeka, where are you? So he said to him, Rabbi, God, the all-being God, he doesn't know what man is. Why did he say to him, why did he ask him, Ayeka?
Where are you? What are you doing?
So the Alter Rebbe said to him, well, of course, he didn't want to startle him. He didn't want to scare him. He just committed a terrible sin. So Hashem tried to engage in conversation by opening up the rhetoric, the dialogue, by saying, Ayeka, where are you? And then engage him, and then like, hey, buddy, what'd you do?
How can you say hey buddy after you know that he's murdered? After what?
He ate from the fruit. He didn't murder him.
Oh, you talk about this.
Adam.
I'm already ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, the next story.
I think very slowly. I speak a little faster than I think.
No, we forgive.
Okay. You're a nice guy.
If somebody walk in, you're gonna start again from the beginning?
No. I'm not like, the Bible salesman. No. There was a guy, just because I need to get everyone's
What's
attention.
another story?
Yeah, there's a guy, he showed up at the biggest publishing / marketing firm in New York, this famous publishing house, and he wants a job. The guy had a terrible stutter. He could barely get out 2 words straight. I mean, for a sentence, it looked like a half hour. So they say to him, what kind of job do you want? He says, sales. Sales? How are you going to sell? He said, no, I promise you, I can sell anything. There's one jokester sitting there. Okay, he had a good sense of humor, part of the board. And he says, you know something? You can sell anything? This publishing house got stuck. 75 pallets. You know what pallets are? 75 pallets of deluxe Bibles. Okay, that costed them $75 a piece to print. They can't get rid of it less than $70, and they can't sell one. No one's buying it. He said, "Can you sell that?" He goes, "Sure." Okay, they take a risk. They give him 10. They give him 10 pieces, and they figure if this guy's crazy, I'll run away with 10 pieces. Anyway, it's been sitting there for a couple of years. He comes back the next day, $750 in hand. Wow. So they give him 20 pieces. 2 hours later, he's back. He's got, what is it? He's got $1,500 in hand. Anyway, in 2 months, everything gone. And now this is like, wow, this guy is a marketing genius. These are the geniuses. These are the top marketers of the world. And they can never sell anything. And this guy can sell it. Anyway, they make a whole special meeting and they bring all the bigwigs from all their, from Washington and from Chicago and from here. They're going to study this. And they put him there in the head of the table and they say, can you explain to us how you say it? Goes, very simple. What simple? He says, I don't know. I knock on the door. Whoever opens the door, I say, would you like to purchase a Bible? They said, no. Then I'll have to read it for you. Give me 2 and get the hell out of here. So I start again. Not a good idea. I speak very slow. So let's get back to it. So the Alter Rebbe was asked. Okay, that's not for Farbrengen. That's not for I'm reading you the book. Let me read. So the Alter Rebbe says to him, well, of course, God was trying to engage him without startling him. So he says to the Alter Rebbe, this is the minister, the non-Jewish minister, he says, Rabbi, what Rashi says, I know. I'm asking you for your insight. And Alter Rebbe said to him, the verse doesn't say, Vayomer Hashem el Adam. It says, Vayomer Hashem el Ha-Adam. And the Alter Rebbe says to him, do you believe that the Torah is not just a book of the past. It's not just a book of history and what happened way back when, but rather it's a living book and it's talking to each and every person. And he says, Rabbi, absolutely, that's why I'm asking you. So he says to him as follows. You should know that Hashem says this to every single person. El Ha'adam, to the person, to every single human. And Hashem says, Ayeka, where are you? What have you accomplished? And he says, for example, if someone should be, and I don't know the exact number, but he named off, let's say, I'm just using figurative number here, 56 years old, 7 months, and 3 weeks, and 2 days, exactly his age. Hashem says to him, Ayeka, where are you? What have you accomplished? What have you done? What do you have to show for all the potential and all the resources that I gave you? What have you accomplished in this world? And he got so excited when he heard it that he started to clap. Here's this intellectual, this minister. He lost all the quorum. He started clapping his hands and he said, bravo! But the Alter Rebbe later told over this. How do we know what happened? Who told over the story? And this is to make my point that I started making before. The Alter Rebbe said, remember the Alter Rebbe wasn't like many rabbis that they talk, but they don't listen to what they're saying. The Alter Rebbe actually paid attention to what he said. And not only did he inspire the minister, the Alter Rebbe inspired himself. And the Alter Rebbe said that what he told to the minister saved his life, because he was in such a spiritual trance, such a spiritual high, that his body, it's called klot hanefesh, that almost his body and soul were about to depart. And because he said it to him, he had that immediate reflection. We're all here for a purpose. We're all here to carry it. It's not about us soaring high and just leaving it all. It's about us accomplishing something here. And that kept him body and soul together. Why am I saying this? Because remember I said the point. The Alter Rebbe, spiritually, absolutely did not suffer in his imprisonment. I just told you. Also we know, the story goes, and it's not just a story, it's not just hearsay. It's so real to the extent, and it's a little spooky, that the Baal Shem Tov, the Alter Rebbe related, that all the time that he was in prison, he had company. He was not alone. He had the Baal Shem Tov and his teacher, the Maggid and Mezritch, were there with him in body. So here, what can you ask greater than that? Even ask any little guy like me today, if you want, can you be here with the Rebbe for a few minutes? I'll give anything away for that. The Alter Rebbe definitely understood and appreciated it. I want to tell you how real this is. This is not just an anecdote that sounds interesting. But many, many years later, a direct descendant of the Alter Rebbe, you know him as the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, visited that prison where his great-great-great-grandfather was in prison. And he insisted on seeing the room, the cell in which the Alter Rebbe was confined. And he said that he wanted to see the room because he knows it was a small room, it was a small cell.
What year was it?
And he visited it?
What year?
What, the Alter Rebbe's imprisonment? Over 200 years ago. He went there, and he kind of, with his eyes, he measured the room to see if there's enough space for one individual plus 2 other individuals. So this is a real story. So that's how we know. The Alter Rebbe also understands something. The person that the Alter Rebbe was, I definitely don't have a concept of it. I can just say the words. I don't know what it looks like. I know what it is. And by the way, our Rebbe and all the Rebbes are the same. Every moment they spent with Chassidim was really a sacrifice. The Alter Rebbe is what we call an atzmi. He was a person of essence. He can be with himself and he has his whole world. He doesn't need, most of us need interaction. We need people, we need things to do, we need people to see, we need places to go. The Alter Rebbe was such a spiritual man, such a special soul. Him being in prison, in a sense, was a privilege for him. So what was the suffering? What was so bad? What's so great? The suffering was, the problem was that he could not spread Chassidus. And that tops all his personal spiritual pleasures, all his personal spiritual achievement, being with the Baal Shem Tov, being with the Magid, having Klot HaNefesh, being in a spiritual trance. That is more important than any of that. If you want to have an illustration of how important it is, watch a video of the Rebbe. Watch a video of the Rebbe giving out dollars, or standing there, which I humbly say I had the privilege of experiencing many times. I didn't appreciate it at the time. Now that I look back, I'm like, wow, the Rebbe giving out dollars. The Rebbe gave from his time. The Rebbe sacrificed from himself. He didn't do it begrudgingly, he did it happily, because that is a purpose which is far greater than the Rebbe's own study, than the Rebbe's own spiritual growth, and so on and so forth, which is certainly the ultimate spiritual growth. If you want an illustration, perhaps, to understand what was the suffering of the Rebbe, watch any gem video of the Rebbe giving out dollars. Not even the Rebbe talking and delivering, a Torah discourse or a Hasidic discourse or something. Just giving out dollars, just interacting with people. That was a tremendous sacrifice for the Rebbe. But that is the ultimate purpose of it all. So the Alter Rebbe's victory, the Alter Rebbe's redemption. Thank you. You made an after blessing?
I made a before blessing.
No.
They have to come in.
After you finish eating it.
I did.
Good. That's reminding me.
But I didn't hear you say I made.
Because I didn't hear you bless it, that's why I asked you.
Oh, okay. Do you have a microphone? I'll say you again.
No, don't say it.
Okay.
So the
Shabbat
Alter Rebbe,
Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
so the Alter Rebbe, for himself, he had no problems. The Alter Rebbe for himself was in a great place. In fact, you think about it, no distractions, no one bothering, no one coming to ask him questions, no one, just him and God. Plus his rabbi, the Baal Shem Tov. Fantastic. The Alter Rebbe, his redemption is our redemption. If not for this day, then Chassidus would not be where it is today.
Was he released and he was supposed to die?
So, the Alter Rebbe, yes, he's supposed to die. You don't want to say those words, but the way the Alter Rebbe was arrested, I want you to have a perspective. We don't have really such a thing in existence today, so it may be hard for us to relate to it. But this is the czarist regime. The czar is a king. And the Alter Rebbe is accused of the worst crime you can be accused of. That is high treason. Okay? That was the libel. It was a lie, but it what? Forget. Yeah, so high treason. The way the Alter Rebbe was whisked away from his home.
Excuse me, treason means a traitor?
Yeah.
Betrayal of the government.
Yeah. Now I have one over you. Something I knew you didn't know.
She will get you back.
Well, she'll get me back, I'm sure. I can tell. So the Alter Rebbe was taken away and that's why it's one of the details in the story that you say over every year. I remember hearing this as a kid, and I'm like, the black cart. The carriage in which they took him wasn't just a regular prisoner carriage, right? It wasn't just with a regular, what do they call those? With the police have hands? Paddy wagon. It wasn't a regular paddy wagon. It was the black one. It made a statement. And the black one typically meant that the people...
Russian, it's called the Black Raven.
Right, the Black Raven, exactly. The previous Rebbe described it. Right. Speak Russian? Yeah. Ну как на русском? Черная что?
Черная ворона.
Черная ворона. Точно. Right? The Black Raven. And basically, 90-something% of anybody who went into that as an arrestee never came home alive. Because that meant that you are being accused of the worst of the worst. And they didn't play games, right? And here, they released him. And what would have happened? In other words, the Alter Rebbe himself, again, God forbid, even if that would have happened, maybe it would have been a merit, he would have died of Kiddush Hashem. But we would not have what we have today, Chassidus. In other words, we have to appreciate this festival is not just like what I explained before. Every festival we celebrate so we can get from the festival. But in fact, this festival is about us. It's not about the Alter Rebbe. It happened to the Alter Rebbe, but it's about us. And we need to take something from it. Of course, the Alter Rebbe is the main figure here. And the Alter Rebbe paid a price. And you know, I said before, and I want to say this very special. Prior to this arrest, it's not like the Alter Rebbe had a peaceful life and everything was going nice and dandy and well with spreading Chassidus. Remember I said before that the women play a special role in the fact that we have Chabad Chassidism today. Understand that whenever there is what we call a kitru, whenever there is dissent, whenever there is any kind of opposition down here, whatever happens down here, as explained extensively in Chassidut, is really a reflection of what happens up there. In other words, down here there was a challenge to the spreading of Chassidus, and in fact, the whole arrest and many of the questions became a referendum on this new, what they called new code, new movement. It's because up in heaven there was a referendum on Chassidus. Should he or should he not continue spreading Chassidus like that? But that didn't start with the arrest. That happened actually a few years before that. We know the Alter Rebbe's daughter paid with her life. You're familiar with the story? Everybody familiar with the story? So what happened was, the Alter Rebbe obviously can sense what's going on up there. The Alter Rebbe knew what's going on up there. And the Alter Rebbe, you can tell that he was in a very, very concerned, very serious, very down mood for a while. And it came close to Rosh Hashanah, and Alter Rebbe's second daughter, Devorah Leah, she got wind, because Alter Rebbe expressed something, and she got wind of the fact that there is a decree hovering over her father's life for the spreading of Chassidus. Immediately, I'm not giving every single detail, but this is the gist of the story. Immediately, it was already close to Rosh Hashanah, so you have all the Chassidim who came to be by the Rebbe for the festivals. Immediately, she convened a Bezdin. What Bezdin? There was some great Chassidic rabbis, and she called them. Imagine the Rebbe's daughter is calling you to a meeting, and she asked them to meet in the shul, in front of the Aron Kodesh, in front of the Holy Ark. And she said to them, you as a Bezdin, you are my witnesses that I am willingly, with clear mind, I am here committing my life to exchange my father's life. First they were like, and she opened the Aron Kodesh. She said, I'm saying this in front of Holy Torahs, the Holy Torah scrolls, in my father's shul, that I, Devorah Leah, the daughter of Sterna was Alter Rebbe's wife, I am giving my life to exchange my father's life as a kapara. And she came before Rosh Hashanah. The Alter Rebbe would go to wish all the members of his family, right? A good long life. And when Alter Rebbe started to say it to her, she stopped him and she said, don't continue, father. And she blessed him. The Alter Rebbe already knew. And then they went into the Alter Rebbe. She went in with her husband. Because her husband was standing there on the side. His name was Reb Sholem Shachner. And he was crying profusely. He was like, what are we going to do? We were a little 2.5-year-old child. You all know that child as the third of Alter Rebbe. What do I do with a little child? What do I do all alone? Who's going to take care of him? The Alter Rebbe said, promised, I will raise you. And that's why, from all the Rebbes, Tzemach Tzedek had the most special relationship with the Alter Rebbe. As a little child, he hung out in the Alter Rebbe's room There are many, many, many stories. I know we're going digressive, but it's part of the story of this Kislev. For example, just as an example, you know how the old European doors look? You have like the keyhole, you can see through the keyhole. So of course, Chassidim, right? They're always doing the criminal act of voyeurism, right? And they're always there looking. And they notice, the Alter Rebbe would pray for hours. The Alter Rebbe would be in his tefillin, would be in a whole different world. And is this little child hanging around the room. So what did a little child do? Just giving you one example. The little child, he fashioned for himself also tefillin. He's trying to mimic his grandfather, right? A child is trying to play. So he took potatoes, he squared them out, made them hard, put strings in them, and when the Alter Rebbe put on his tefillin, he would put on his tefillin. Now Chassidim were looking through it to the thing. They understood it's the Alter Rebbe's grandchild and everything, but still it bothered them. He's still a kid, and he's still wasting that. Is this really is it maybe interfering with Alter Rebbe's avoda, with the service of Hashem, with his spiritual, connections? And everything changed. When one time they noticed the Alter Rebbe took up his tefillin, his real tefillin, bona fide tefillin. You have the straps, they hang down. So the child also took off his tefillin, but the Alter Rebbe didn't put it away right away. So he didn't put his away right away. And he was running around the room, and the strings, the straps of his tefillin got caught in the foot of the table. So he couldn't, it got locked, it got tied in, got knotted in. And they noticed that Alter Rebbe put down his tefillin, bent down, and untied those, and they realized Chassidim don't understand everything. They may think they want to try to understand it. So what happened? This was the eve of Rosh Hashanah, when Rebbe Boraleah, the second daughter of the Alter Rebbe, when she made this promise, and she didn't allow her father to give her a blessing. Her father gave a blessing, blessing of a tzaddik doesn't get reversed. And the Alter Rebbe already made the commitment, and immediately after Rosh Hashanah, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, she fell ill, and on Tzom Gedalia, she already passed away. Okay, but I'm saying you should know, behind every major story in Judaism, there's always a special woman. No, there's always a special woman. Even Hanukkah. You all know, for example, like Hanukkah, what? Hanukkah is a minhag, and the women should definitely know about it. And if your husband's interfere with this, not to call me. So the custom is that women do not do any house chores, any work, or anything while the Hanukkah candles are lit. Why? Because one of the main characters of the victory of Hanukkah was actually a woman, Yehudis. She carried it out, and there was self-sacrifice. What she did, what she had to do in order to achieve what she did, look up the story, was something very special. And so on and so forth. The greatest heroes of Judaism are the women. Okay? So getting back to the story.
Is she the one that cut the head off?
Yes. That's the guy. I know you're trying to get one over me, but
I just wanted to be sure.
I'm being vigilant.
Give her a chance.
We were discussing about it, and I thought it was you this.
Yeah, you heard
How how did she do it? Let's see. Who
Young?
know?
No.
The
That's
night
not,
is still young.
Yeah. So
How did she do it? She gave him cheese and wine and she put him to sleep.
So I wanted to hear.
yeah, but
Be on top of him.
Oh,
to give
To
some,
win. To win.
to give somebody
okay.
cheese and wine is a process. And what you had to do for that process was really, you should know, she was a holy woman. And she was really a tzaddikus. And what she had to do in order to manipulate the situation and to come to that was total and absolute mesirut nefesh. Sometimes people think mesirut nefesh means self-sacrifice. You give up your life. Sometimes mesirut nefesh, self-sacrifice, means for a certain cause, for a true cause, to do something which is totally and absolutely against your nature, against your character, against your piety, against who you are. And that's what she did. It's the ultimate self-sacrifice. In a certain sense, I don't want to digress, in a certain sense, if you think about it, God forbid if somebody has to give up their life for Judaism, it's not as difficult because, it's a big thing, but it's very finite. Okay, you don't have any pain after you die. You understand? and I'm not saying this on my own, but rather the Talmud says this. The Gemara says, we all know about the famous heroes, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, the colleagues of the prophet Daniel, that they were thrown into the lion's den and the whole thing. I mean, into the furnace. And they came out, they were miraculous, they were ready to go. And we mentioned, and believe me, we Jews know how to do it. Look in all the literature on Rosh Hashanah, especially Yom Kippur. As we get, as the momentum grows, it's like, hello, God, don't forget the Akedah, don't forget Hananiah, Mishael, and that's not right. Who he who answered? I mean, Hashem hears it every year. And with all validity. Absolutely. These people gave them the life. You know what the Talmud says? That if God forbid they weren't given an ultimatum, a very finite and definitive situation, live or die, but in fact they were tortured, says the Talmud, we don't know what the end would have been. In other words, to live in constant pain and torture is a lot more difficult than, okay, the person gets killed, you throw it into fire, a few minutes later, you're charred meat and it's over. You did a big mitzvah. But to be tortured, to go through what Yehudis did, didn't happen in one day. She didn't just deliver, hey, you want to eat some cheese? I want to intoxicate you.
Jewish
Oh,
people
sure, I'll
have
take
been
it.
tortured for centuries.
What? That's what makes us great.
That's enough already.
Prevail.
I agree. I agree. I agree. So where are we going with this? Yeah.
We're chef now.
No? Just go back where we were.
Start from the beginning.
Oh, so we're saying about what Yehudi said about. We're saying the great women. We spoke about, the Bora Leah and giving up her life. But Yehudi, she's talking about that story of Hanukkah. I'm saying it was a constant thing. It was not an easy thing. It was something that she had to build up. And if you know the details of the story, we're not going to get graphic. She actually did things that were so against who she was, so against her own character, so against her nature, and she did it on a constant basis just for the ultimate purpose that she had in mind, and she carried it out. And that's something amazing. That's the ultimate Mesiras Nefesh. And the truth is, we can experience that many times. Many times we are called in a situation. We're faced with a situation, maybe something to take away. We're faced with a situation that you have to constantly be fighting your own nature, your own character, do things that maybe are not comfortable. You're not jumping into a fiery furnace. You're not getting your head chopped off, thank God. But sometimes that's much harder and more difficult. In fact, as you said before, Jews have been tortured always. We all know the famous medrash that it says Moshe Rabbeinu, he was showing all the generations until Mashiach comes. And when he saw our generation, us, regular people, little people, it says that that's what the verse means. Vayish Moshe Anav Mikol Ha'adam Asher P'yadav. He was so humble, and the Rebbe explains it. And the point, I'm going to give the tamtzit, just the concentrated point of the explanation of the Rebbe is that when he saw our generation and the challenges that we face. Now, what are the challenges? You can say, wow, Jews have freedom. Jews have, we're not being, thank God, there's no real pogroms. There's no Holocaust now. What's the challenges? The challenges is in the constant basis that we have to fight off those who mock us, those who don't understand us, those who look at us and you look like a religious Jew, or you do a mitzvah, you're cuckoo, you're crazy, even within Jews. That, even though no one's holding an axe over your head, no one's holding a gun to your head, no one's throwing you into fiery furnace, but if you think about it psychologically and emotionally, that's more difficult on a constant daily basis to be able to withstand that and not buckle and not fold in the face of that challenge. That's something that even Moshe said, wow, I end the alert. You know what I mean? Like wow. Okay? So getting back to it, I think we all agree right now. It's not I'm gonna have to sell your Bible, but we all agree that this celebration is about us. What we got from this. Because the Alter Rebbe could have been in the greatest spiritual heights. He didn't need any of this. So when we celebrate today, we're celebrating us. We're celebrating what we got from it. And most importantly, what we are going to get from it. What are we
So
going to
we
take
have
away?
to ask Hashem to open the hearts of these Jews who are standing up against their own selves and against their own people. They shouldn't stand in the way, because we are in a generation where many Goyim, many Gentiles are standing up for us, right? And have to deal with Jewish people telling them the opposite of what's emes, what's true, and what's good for us. Hashem has to open these people's
Amen.
hearts.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
So next year you don't have to show up. She's gonna
Next year we'll be in the base of Mikdash.
Amen.
Mashiach is coming this year.
Amen.
Be'ezrat Hashem.
Right now.
Right now.
Be'ezrat Hashem.
Like fish.
Hannah is coming right now. Want to give these big ass shakras to Omer. Omer, keep the Hazakim, the food's delicious. Nice. Chef Omer.
מרגישים את האהבה.
מה שמשפחת לך קמחי? יש לך משפחה קמחי בארץ?
יש.
מי?
בירושלים וחיפה.
מי, רוני?
לא.
הרב, רוני קמחי? היה, במשפחה היה מורה אחד, היה גר באילת? מורה לאנגלית.
לא שאני יודע.
היו לי שכנים, בירושלים.
זה הקמחי שחלקו להם את השם.
הם רק עושים מקמח.
נו? Chaim. So do we continue the Farbrengen or?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, sir. מה זה לכבוד מי העוגה?
A birthday shall run.
Oh.
Run for your life.
You know what to do? By the way, birthday is a very special thing. Run.
Oh, run, you are the one that run for the life. You know, I'm getting emails left and right. I didn't always run. Someday, every Sunday.
So it's a minute, it's a custom. It's even become a Jewish custom to sing happy birthdays. Yeah. Come on, a little enthusiasm.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
By the way, a birthday is a very special thing. No, but I'm saying any birthday. Right? Because the Rabbi made a big deal out of it. There's actually a time people didn't celebrate birthdays. It's a very Jewish. Because, by the way, many people years ago, they didn't even know what the birthday was. Did she know? No, I'm saying that she might have. No, but I'm saying. No, I know stories of people that write the Rebbe, and the Rebbe, you see, like very strict habits. The Rebbe told them exactly what the birthday is. The Rebbe made a big deal. So they know they're about this, you know. It's around Hanukkah. But they didn't know exactly.
When did they start fighting?
No, so I'm saying, trying to illustrate it's a big deal. So it's very sacred, very big deal.
The birthday today, Hashem says, he wrote
אבל הקמחי ההוא שאני מכיר גם מצרי. כן? הרב קמחי, רוני קמחי.
Anyway, anyway, l'chaim.
God bless.
So you cut up the table. Everybody will get tables. So I want to share with you. Anyway, l'chaim. I want to share with you a story. I'll tell you when I heard it, where I heard it. And it's so inspirational to me that I'm repeating it ever since. And I know people, and I say this proudly, it inspired me, made a change in my life. And I know many people that inspire them to make change. Change doesn't mean that you change, your whole life, but you change something in your life. I think the Rebbe was very big on making achlatas, making resolutions. As small as they may seem, they're very, very big. You all know, guys, I also happen to be a rabbi, my regular job. And when rabbis speak, one of two things happen. Either people are sleeping or listening. They're not meant to be talking. What? So there's a metaphor that the Alter Rebbe gives in Tanya, and the Rebbe repeated it many times to people. The importance of even a tiny, small change, even the smallest change. And the Rebbe said it to people, quoting the Tanya. If you're ever outside on a sunny day, which is not such a big problem living here in South Florida, and you look at the ground and make yourself a mark, a figurative mark on the ground, exactly where the shade is, where the shade ends. It means, the sun shining. When that mark, when that shade, that space, the shade, moves a quarter of an inch, certainly half an inch, certainly an inch, how many thousands of miles did the sun now move in its orbit? So what may seem so insignificant down here, you go, what? You're only going to do achlata? You're going to make a resolution? You take upon yourself now to learn 5 minutes a day of the Alter Rebbe's teachings? Or you're going to do this mitzvah only 5 minutes a day? I can tell you from my own personal experience, practical experience, all the great, grandiose achlatot, resolutions, right? Like now, lahavdil, the going New Year resolutions, nothing, almost absolutely nothing ever came of that. And I'll tell you why, and it makes sense. It's not because I'm a bad person, at least not in this, other things, but don't talk to my wife. It's not because you're a bad person. It's because, think about it. You're standing on Rosh Hashanah, you're inspired. You're genuinely in a great place. And when you make that resolution, you have every intention
to keep it.
Of keeping that resolution, of fulfilling it 1,000%. You mean it. It's not a lie. It's 100% true. But the next day, you start doing it. 20 days later, you're in a whole different situation. You're not there where you are on Rosh Hashanah. And it's not attainable because you took a resolution, because on Rosh Hashanah, remember, you weren't going to work, your phone wasn't there, you weren't, no emails. So, of course, you took upon yourself to study an hour of Chassidus every day. It's not happening. It's just not possible. It's not attainable. It's not achievable. But if you take 5 minutes a day, how can you not find 5 minutes within a 24-hour period? And think about it. 5 minutes is not a lot, but it is when you start to do the math. 5 minutes times 7 is 35. And God forbid, those few days that you're inspired and you have a little extra time, you're not going to do just 5 minutes. You'll do 10 minutes, God forbid. Right? Yeah? So that 35 minutes might be 40, 45 minutes. On average, it'll be 40 minutes a week. And after times that now by 52 weeks in the year, that's a lot more than the hour you took upon yourself. That never happened. Correct? So I want to tell you the story that inspired me, and I use it to inspire people to take upon themselves 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes doesn't even have to be that you have to stop everything. While you're driving, go on Chabad.org, listen to a class, something from the Rebbe's Torah, something from the Rebbe's teachings. And I'll tell you what the story was. Listen to the story. It's an amazing story. I heard this from a person who heard it from one of the people that heard the story directly, almost firsthand. Here's the story. There was a rabbi in Israel, very important personality. His name was Rabbi Avremel. He was in charge of all the major Chabad organizations in Israel. We're going back now in the 60s. He was in charge of all the major organizations, the central Chabad yeshivas and the central organizations. In fact, many letters that were sent to people, especially if you know how the postal service in Israel was then, it didn't go directly to the houses. It went to Rabbi Ephraim's office, and he would distribute the answers. He would call the people and give them the answers that Rabbi gave. Anyway, the responses, some of them were no. Some of them are letters written to Rabbi Ephraim. Tell this person. That's how he was a representative of the Rebbe. Anyway, listen to the story. It's a fascinating story, and the punchline of it you should live with every single day. And I want to preface it. What are you going to see in any Chabad house, in any Chabad person's home, in any Chabad house, in any Chabad shul? What? A picture of the Rebbe. A picture of the Rebbe. And a book of the Rebbe, right? For sure. By the way, you know the story, the picture of the Rebbe and the Rebbe's wife? True story. Not making it up. I'll tell you when I make up the stories. A very nice woman, and I think you can see her. African-American woman. You can see her after the Rebbe passed away. There's a video of her going by like dollars. And when she came to, she would work in some of the, let's just say some of the more affluent homes in Crown Heights. On President Street, right? It was not my house, don't worry. Anyway, and the Rebbe's, hey, the food was good, we're liking it. The Rebbe's, no, I don't look like I need table. It's a compliment. The Rebbe, let someone else get back. I'm excited enough.
You were talking about the Rebbe.
On my refrigerator, there's a magnet that says everything here is low fat except for me. Anyway, so the Rebbe's wife needed a new housekeeper or whatever. So of course, you want to get someone proper. So she came to work in the Rebbe's house. She was a very well-mannered person, a good person. And after several times, she summoned the courage. She was chatting with the Rebbe's wife. She said, can I ask you a question? Sure. And she said, I noticed in this community, in all the homes that I work in, everyone has a picture of this rabbi. You don't have that picture. It's something different. She asked her, she smiled. The other question she asked her, which is very important, she said, also, in all the homes that I work, there's always a lot of children. And I didn't notice any children. And here the Rebbe said to her, our children are spread out throughout the world. How do we know what she meant? Because when the Rebbe passed away, one of the first orders that the Rebbe gave, one of the first, the news came, one of the first, if I'm not mistaken, the very first thing is in Yiddish. He's a lazim in the kinder, the shluchim, that they should notify all the shluchim around the world, the children, that she passed away. So getting back to it, any Chabad house you go, your car and this, you have a picture of the Rebbe. The Rebbe's present, right? So listen to the story. And Avremel, remember, he was a very important figure in Chabad in Israel, and he came to the Rebbe for Sukkot. He came to the Rebbe to spend the festival with the Rebbe. On the way back, going back home, before he left, before he was planning to leave, he went into Rabbi Chadakov. Who was Rabbi Chadakov? Rabbi Chadakov was the Rebbe's right-hand man, Rebbe's secretary, chief secretary. Rabbi Chadakov had a directive for him. He had instructions for him from the Rebbe. What were the instructions? When he flies back to Israel, he shouldn't just have a short stopover. In those days, they weren't direct flights. They would stop over either in France or in London, and from there, continue with a flight to Israel. But rather, he should stay around for a couple of days. What he should do there, what he should do exactly, he wasn't told. But you know, if the Rebbe tells you to stop over, you stop over. So he stopped over.
Where did he stop over?
Wait, he stopped over in London, and he stayed there for several days. He knows he has a mission. He doesn't know what the mission is. So he started to look around. Naturally, I'm sure you can ask Rabbi Kiedman, anybody who runs an organization. Naturally, if you're in a place and you're not sure what your mission is, one thing you do know is there might be an opportunity to raise funds, much needed funds for your organization. So he asked around, and he was told about a certain individual that's very sympathetic. He likes Chabad and so on. And he called, he made an appointment with him, and he went to visit him. And he spoke to him, he told him about the organization, what they do and everything. And the guy wrote a very generous check. He wrote a generous check.
Yeah. Very generous.
I don't know the amount.
What would that mean?
In those days, this is a long time ago. Anyway, he wrote a generous check, and Rabbi Ephraim thought maybe this is why the Rebbe sent it. But certainly, as a devoted servant of the Rebbe, he's going to report back. So he goes to where he was staying, and it was very expensive. Anybody here was old enough. I don't see anybody white here, but anybody who was old enough remembers it was a big thing to call, long distance, let alone transatlantic. Oh, big thing. He's an old man like me. Anyway, yeah. Oh, the collect calls, come on. Yeah, call today. Yeah. Right? By the way, when you're in a group of people, these days, I want to try to measure how old the people are. When they're taking pictures, I always go, please don't waste the film. And whoever's laughing, I know that they understand. That they were born before 1980 or 85, 80, right? Anyway, so he calls Rabbi Chadakov, he calls New York, and he reports that he saw this and this individual, and he gave a nice check. He gets a call back from Rabbi Chadakov. Rabbi Chadakov tells him that he reported it to the Rebbe. You have to hear the story. He reported it to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said to give over to that person, meaning to give him a message, that individual, that the Rebbe wants to know how come, I don't remember the exact words, but how is it that the Rebbe sent him a request, the Rebbe sent him a letter, in Yiddish, totally ignoring it. Doesn't answer the Rebbe, nothing. How's it possible? What kind of thing is this? Wow, now he understands. It's not about the check. Which didn't hurt, by the way. But it's about, there's a mission here. There's something going on here. So he calls that individual and he says, listen, I want to come see you. I'm not asking for money. I have a message from the Rebbe. Sure, come on. He comes by to that person, and he says to him, I called New York, I told them about your donation, and then I get a call back that the Rebbe asked that I go give you this message. He wants to know, what is this all about? How come the Rebbe sends you a letter, he asks you to do something, and you just totally ignore it? So this guy says to him, he says, Rabbi, indeed, I received a letter from the Rebbe. The Rebbe asked me to do something. He asked me to commit to something. I heard one version of the story that it was commit to put out tefillin every single day. I'm not sure, but whatever it is. And he said to him as follows, I am not about to commit. I can't commit to do it every day. I can't. On the other hand, I respect the Rebbe. I don't have the chutzpah to go and write to the Rebbe, no, or refuse. I just can't do it. So what am I supposed to do? So I just ignored it. I just didn't respond. What am I supposed to do? But as they're talking, he says to him, I want you to know something. It's not God forbid because I don't respect the Rebbe. In fact, this is so special to me. I have a letter that the Rebbe held in his hand, and the Rebbe signed the Rebbe's signature. This is so sacred to me, he says to Rabbi Wolf, that I'm going to instruct my children that after 120, meaning after I pass, they should bury me with this letter. In other words, don't think that I'm just, disregarding it. Okay, Rabbi Wolf did his mission. He went back to his staying. He called New York. He called Rabbi Chadakov to report on the conversation and the guy's response. And then he hears a voice on the line. A lot of times the Rebbe was on the line, but the Rebbe didn't speak to people on the phone, at least that we know. There were some individuals, but officially the Rebbe didn't speak on the phone. The Rebbe would do is he would speak to the secretary. The secretary would repeat it, but you heard twice now. You heard the Rebbe's voice. And the Rebbe said as follows, when he gave over this point, that the guy says it's so special to him, it's so precious to him, that he has an object from the Rebbe, and he wants to be buried with it. The Rebbe said, give Iber Tza'em, I'm going to translate it literally, give over to him, as is beser zu leben mit dem Rebbe, either starve with him. Better to live with the Rebbe than to die with the Rebbe. And this is my message. This is what I got. And I'm telling you where I heard this. You have to understand the setting. It was Gimel Tammuz, this last Gimel Tammuz, right? They were passing of the Rebbe. And the truth is,
It didn't really pass.
Okay. You have one over me now. You're
Physically.
right. Yes, you're right.
You said the truth is.
Yeah. No, and I'm saying that it was Gimel Tammuz. And what happened? No, I'm saying my truth, in my little false world, my truth. I didn't know if I'm going or not going because the tickets are very expensive, and things were very tight. I wanted to go, but a very good bookkeeper, let's just say, and she wasn't allowing me. She wasn't going to hear of it. And then, luckily for me, and to me, it was a sign. I made a decision in my mind. If the Rebbe wants me to be there, I will be there. I don't know how, but I will be there. And a friend of mine that I'd learned with over the phone, he lives in Lakewood. He's a Lubavitcher. I know Chabad, he's involved with Chabad. So like a few days before, he asks me, okay, so when are you coming? When am I going to see you by the oil? I go, I don't know if I'm coming. What do you mean you're not coming? I'm like, I'm telling you what, So, okay, by now he already knows the drill. So I said, listen, I'm going to call my wife. You call Zelly, you talk to her, and you take care of business. And he did. Whatever. So he bought me a ticket. Of course, I'm going. Got delayed. I didn't get into the oil till 10 o'clock at night, which actually worked out well because my date is these lines and everything at night. You go 2 o'clock in the morning, you go in, you can say the whole thing. Now it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, close to 4, and I'm waiting. I go back, 3 o'clock, and I'm waiting, till 4 o'clock. I go back to the airport and go back home. And that's when I heard the story. And I realized why I came to it. What I was saying is, if you're just going to live with, and forgive me for saying these words, I just have no better way of saying it. You're going to live with a dead Rebbe, with a still image, with a book, with an object. That's not living with the Rebbe. To live with the Rebbe is you have to live with the Rebbe. How do you live with the Rebbe? So we know by Chassidim, the Chassidus that the Rabbeim would deliver, the Chassidus that the Chabad Rebbes would deliver, what is it called? What do we call it? We call it Dach. Dalet Aleph Chet, which is an acronym for Divrei Elokim Hayim, the word of the living God. I don't know if a dead God, well, at least not in our religion, but what does it mean, the word of the living God? God's alive. God is alive. What does this expression mean? What does this title mean? I get my humble opinion, or never to be humble opinion. What is Divrei Elokim Hayim? That these are words that are connected to God. How are many people connected to God? And sadly, we see this collectively also amongst Jews. Of course, they're connected to God. They have a Star of David, another still image, a dead image. Not you, right? Not you. He was a drug dealer. That's why I started doing that. Okay, I know. They'll even have a nice a picture of Hasidim dancing in their homes, some art, right? They'll have a Torah scroll, maybe some ancient looking Torah scroll, but it's dead. That's not Judaism. These are artifacts. These are artifacts. For all intents and purposes, they can be sitting in a museum somewhere in India. It doesn't change anything. It has to be alive. Sometimes we can even hear words of Torah, and they're from God, but they're not the living God. They're not giving us life. When you're connected to the Rebbe's Chassidus, and that's why I say, even 5 minutes a day, remember, there's people, God forbid, who have problems. There's a doctor who was sitting here before. I guess he got scared of me and ran away. I don't blame him. And they have problems with their kidneys. The kidneys are not functioning. They're not hooked up to a machine 24/7. But they got to go for a certain amount of time and get the blood clean, right? In order for them to live for the next 20 hours. It's burdensome and we should never know of it, right? There's people who sometimes they have certain problems. They need just every day a certain amount of time to take oxygen. Not a whole day. They don't have to walk around the whole day. We need to have our daily dose of Divrei Elokim Chaim, of getting that living God, not just having artifacts of God, not just having words, but connecting with the Rebbe's Chassidus and with the Alter Rebbe, so whatever it is. Pick your 5 minutes a day and get inspired. Get the blood, get that Divrei Elokim Chaim. But remember those words. I mean, to me, it's still ringing in my ears. I heard the story. I even called the person to thank him. The person was in the story. I said, you don't know what kind of chain reaction you made. Because I'm telling it to people, and I've got so many people say, just commit 5 minutes a day, the Rebbe's Torah. It could be the Kudusik code. It could be a minor. It could be, there's no shortage. It's anything. And if you're too lazy to open a book, well, you don't have the time, you don't have the ability, you're on a run. You're on the run.
Rabbi, if you would put more heart and soul into spreading the belief that the Rebbe gave us to understand that he is the Mashiach, then maybe people would actually listen to what you're trying to tell them.
I get it, you're right. L'chaim. We have to remember, we're gonna make a resolution, whatever your resolution is. Wow, that's Yom Kippur. Don't say Yom Kippur. That is right after Yom Kippur.
Somebody said Yom Kippur, you know how many years ago?
This is AI, it wasn't there.
Oh, yeah, look.
L'chaim. Remember, Hashem should give us life, and we should live with the Rebbe. You know the famous story? It's in Hayom Yom. The book, the first book the Rebbe wrote. The great Chassid of Leffler. And when the Alter Rebbe wanted to bless him with riches, with affluence, with money, what did he say? He refused. Imagine turning down a blessing. I'm sure his wife, he came home and said, are you nuts? I need to pay the bill, right? That's what my wife would say. I don't care how spiritual you are. You're nuts. But what did he say? No, I don't want to have money to distract me. I want to serve Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe wanted to bless him with long life. And he said to the Alter Rebbe, but not peasant years. In other words, he stipulated a condition. Imagine somebody's giving you a gift and you go on one condition. I don't want to just live long life of peasant years. Peasants can live very long, but what do they do? A horse can be, by the way, horses, look at their faces, they look very serious. There's nothing there. Behind the eyes, there's nothing there. We should have real life. We should have a life with the Rebbe. And of course, not stop living our lives. We need to go to work, we need to buy things, we need to eat. But 5 minutes a day, like a dialysis, that's what I'm saying. 5-10 minutes a day, get that Divrei Elokim Chaim, the words of the living God, flowing in the blood, purifying our blood, our existence. Chaim. The way I heard it, What? What is the red ball? The red ball is because Ari likes attention, and if you wouldn't have a red ball, you wouldn't ask for my attention in that thing. I know Ari. And now you can sit down, you got your attention.
Is it a dramatic place?
I'm sorry, you were gonna ask me.
Today we're talking about incarceration, right? And today, the sixth parsha is talking about Yosef being incarcerated.
The Rebbe was very, very big on it, and it's based on the teachings of the Shalom, the Holy Shalom, Rabbi Yishayahu Harel, great Kabbalist. By the way, the Tanya is founded on this teaching. He writes, actually one of the highlights of the Rebbe's teachings, that he writes that every festival, every special occasion, the parsha falls around, the parsha happens to coincide with, it's not coincidence, it's connected, it's inherently connected with the parsha. You see, the Rebbe would always, the Rebbe, yeah, so there's an inherent connection, very, very deep. By the way, the whole story with Joseph, incarceration, talking about the incarcerations.
Everyone wasn't coming today.
Yeah, so I have a friend, a Russian friend, he's a Malchuba, right? Yeah. She lives here. How do you guys know? He told me, his parents once told him, like, listen, what kind of movement do you belong to? Like, all your rabbis all sat in jail. Like, what? All the press, like, what kind of gangster? Like, you becoming more religious? What? Africa, yeah. You know what I mean? But it's true, but there's something about it. No, this, you know what? The Rebbe actually brings in an amazing, it's in a Sikha, he quotes the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Rebbe says that if not for the fact that a predecessor, a Rebbe said it, it would be difficult to say these words. But he quotes the Talmud. The Talmud says, in general, Jewish people are compared to olives. We find certain fruits that we're compared to, right? One of them is olives. We're compared to the vine, to the grape, or the wine. They're compared to the olive. So it says in the Talmud, the olive, the only way it gives off its true essence, its true oil, its oil, meaning its true worth, is only when it gets really crushed, really squeezed. And you see that in Am Yisrael. And more than just collectively Am Yisrael, You see it with the greatest of the leaders. Whether it's Moshe, whether it's the Chabad Rebbes, only when there was schism, the Alter Rebbe, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Rashab, Rabbi Shlomo Lubavitch says about this story of Yud Tes Kislev, the 9th Yud Tes Kislev, that this was that watershed moment. This was the Alter Rebbe and the olive press. In fact, he coined the phrase, he meaning the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, and once you see it, if you really look and you look at the discourses, he coined the phrase Far Peterburg und nach Peterburg. In English, before Petersburg and after Petersburg. The Alter Rebbe was incarcerated in Petersburg. The way the Alter Rebbe, the style, the form, and also the level that the Alter Rebbe disseminated Chassidic teachings, the secrets of the Torah, prior to his arrest, is uncomparable to what happened after. And that's what, in other words, this is why the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, we term this day as Rosh Hashanah for Chassidus. I know you start thinking Rosh Hashanah, Chassidus wasn't created. Remember, what is Rosh Hashanah? What is Rosh Hashanah?
Beginning.
Rosh Hashanah.
The head of the year. The head of the year. Not the beginning. Anybody knows anything about history of the world knows that we celebrate Rosh Hashanah not on the day that the world was created, not on the day, but rather on the day that not women, men were created, no, that human beings were created, right? That the human being was created. So the question is, does it make sense? It does make sense. Because what do you celebrate? Bezrat Hashem, you should be successful finishing the building. You don't celebrate every time you put on another cinder block. It might be a celebration in the moment. But 10 years later, 10 years down the road, what are you going to celebrate? The anniversary of what? The anniversary of when we started using the building. The anniversary of when the purpose of it all was finally realized, was finally met. The purpose of the creation of the world, the whole entire reason Hashem created the world was for mankind to be here and to observe Torah, to do what Hashem wants. So till mankind was created, the world was a beautiful place. And in fact, I think it's better because man wasn't here to drive his car, to pollute the world. Man wasn't here to destroy the place, right? Man wasn't here to do sins. Beautiful, pristine place. But it had no purpose. It had no meaning. In a certain sense, until the story of Yud Tes Kislev, the 9th of the Kislev, yes, there was Chassidus, there was some people studying Chassidus, but to really, really have that true impact that Chassidus was meant to have, the reason why Hashem created the world, what's the purpose for the creation of the world? Why did Hashem create the world? For the era of Mashiach. What's going to bring us to that? How do we know that Hashem has created the world for the era of Mashiach? In other words, that Mashiach is the ultimate purpose of the world, the era of Mashiach. How do we know? Because if you look back at one of the first verses in Bereshit, what does it say? The Ruach Elokim merachefet al pnei ha'mayim. That the Spirit of God was hovering over the water. What's the Spirit? It wasn't that the airline with the yellow color. It's disgusting. It wasn't that. How do you say, by the way, Spirit Airlines in Hebrew?
Spirit Airlines.
Ruach Ra'ah.
Ah.
No,
Yeah. Mamash?
Hey, Mamash don't walk live.
No.
Hey, Mamashke.
You know, he's making up stories now.
Yeah.
Now it's a time of the day that people start making stories.
Okay. So getting back to it, what does this mean, the Spirit of God? The Medrash says, what is the Spirit of God that's hovering over the water? It was the Spirit of Mashiach. Oh, wait, one moment. Some people think, they have this misconception, that Mashiach really was just like, it just kind of like, what's the mother of all inventions? What's the mother of all inventions? Necessity. Jews are living a very hard life, going through pogroms, going through all kinds of harassment, going through all kinds of persecution. So, kind of like you need that something to hope for. You always need a little carrot that you can run after and not give up hope. You know what I mean? Right? So that carrot became Mashiach. That's how some people look at it. No! Mashiach's not a solution to a problem. Mashiach is the purpose of it all. Everything that we're experiencing from the beginning of the creation till now, that's part of the process to get there. But Mashiach is the ultimate goal. How do we bring Mashiach? Dissemination of Chassidus. So today is the purpose of it all, Rosh Hashanah, because today Yud Tes Kislev and Alter Rebbe is when really Chassidus began to be disseminated on a whole different level. And then as time progressed, more and more and more and more. I mean, I'm sure Rabbi Kiva can relate to this because we're not exactly the same age, but we're kind of close in the same generation. When we were growing up, we lived a few blocks away from the Rebbe. No, really, and I say this.
We're neighbors.
Yeah, yeah. He was the good neighbor. Anyway, down the block. His older brother and I were in the same class. It's good because at least the teacher has something to talk to. He learned and I didn't. So anyway, so actually, yeah, come here. He's a scholar. He really, I'm just jokes, the stories. So when we were kids growing up, you imagine, it's hard to imagine now. The Rebbe lived a couple blocks away. We went to Chabad Yeshiva. Like our level of knowledge and our level of awareness about the Rebbe and about Chassidus was not like what our kids are doing today. In other words, I can see vividly the level of dissemination of Chassidus is actually gaining more and more and more momentum. I mean, I personally know non-Jews that study Chassidus, that are aware of godliness, that because of this. So what happened today is Rosh Hashanah. What happened today actually is the Rosh Hashanah. This is the purpose of it all. Just like we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, not when God, broke ground, right? But when God finally made the purpose of man. And you know what? I want you to think of it for a second. The Rosh Hashanah we celebrate is also the anniversary of, in Brooklyn English. Today the guy screwed up. On that Rosh Hashanah, he wasn't just created him and his wife.
Right, yeah.
They also ate for the tree of knowledge. They also messed up. That's all part of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, it's all part of the process. It's part of Hashem's plan. Right? So when we're experiencing this Rosh Hashanah, it says mankind, with whatever mankind brings, that's the purpose of it all. So Rosh Hashanah is the dissemination of Chassidus, with sometimes the difficulties, the challenges, the ups and downs. Yes, we're in a difficult period. Anybody, I'm sure Rabbi Kiva feels the same, I'm sure his mother even more, that I sometimes I try to explain to somebody, he's like, you guys talk about the Rebbe. I said, you don't understand. I would give away, not that I understand what a Rebbe is, I don't. I'm not one of the big scholars, I'm not an expert, but I think anybody of my era, my generation, feels the same. I give away anything in the world just to be able to see the Rebbe. And I don't understand Rebbe.
About to speak to him.
Yeah, just to, I mean, you're scared to even talk to me like you. Yeah, that's good. And I'm happy for you. I'm saying there's a whole different relationship. My point is, we live in a time where you have pictures of the Rebbe, you see the growth of the Rebbe's power, the Rebbe's teachings, the Rebbe's, I said the living Torah of the Rebbe, right? Divrei Elokim Chayim. But it's still hard. It's difficult, right? Just like we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, it wasn't all pleasant. It wasn't all peaches and cream, right? You messed up. They got told guys are gonna die, right? I mean, it was also a terrible day, but we celebrated it as a positive day. But that's when the purpose of it all came to fruition. That's when the objectives were met, and that's what happened. That's what happens there. That's called Rosh Hashanah. By the way, there's a parallel. That Rosh Hashanah is the only festival that's celebrated universally by everyone, whether in the diaspora or whether in Israel, as a 2-day celebration. Yud Tes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, we don't just celebrate the 19th because it's the 19th and the 20th. Now, there is a technical reason for it. But spiritually speaking, you see how it lines up, and it's so parallel with 2 days and 2-day celebration by everyone. In other words, it's set in stone. Technically speaking, in the diaspora, when we celebrate 2 days, the second day of a festival, it's not really the festival because in Israel they're already not celebrating, right? So it's kind of an add-on. It's not an add-on. This is the celebration. So it's Rosh Hashanah, and we should take note of it. And remember, I want to go back to live with the Rebbe. And today we're celebrating the Alter Rebbe, which I explained is really our celebration, but it's connected to Alter Rebbe. We have to live with Alter Rebbe, live with the teachings. You shouldn't go by a day in your life that you don't at least read one passage, one line or 2 lines from the time. you need, okay, especially if you follow the chitas, right? You know, the normal, not normal, the regular order of study, right? Which is every day to study a portion from the Torah, a portion from the Tanya, and a portion from Tehillim, which, by the way, all connected, right? All connected to the idea of Mashiach, right? And all of it, right? So I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. What? You're scaring me. Stop. And you know what? I want to turn the microphone over, not to you, to everyone. Everybody's sharing. I know we said Farbrengen is a collaborative event.
I wanted to share that when I speak to Rabbi Bernstein, that he shares with me that he was there during Yud Tes Kislev when the Friedrich Rebbe was there.
Wow, so you should share with us.
So I wanted to ask. I've been asking Rabbi Bernstein also to share something with us. Anything if you'd like to share. We'd love to.
That we're having in
Thinks that it's possible. You already have the building up.
Amen.
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 Time schwer. All the stories I heard.
Let's go.
What? You have some names?
Maybe.
Maybe. No, you know the salesperson? When is the salesperson? The customer says no. What? What? Go ahead.
So I heard from someone, I don't know, you guys could correct me if I'm saying it wrong. What's the word for prevail in Hebrew?
Yeah, we're busy on Sunday.
You better say prevail.
Victorious.
Another one, it's from Bereshit 32:29.
The question
It's with
32:29.
yeah.
Yeah.
With Bob.
32:29. Made it very easy. What? You the daughter of a preacher or something? You know? 32.
29.
Sarita. Yeah, that's not the common one. That's a
Sí, sí, no quiero más.
Oh, sure, right, that's there.
I don't know how to say this.
Not too hot.
Oh, okay, that one, it has.
You know what the real, but you know what the etymology of that word, batul, really means, practically speaking? You know what? What? Able.
Able?
Yeah. Yeah. So in other words, I don't know where you're going with this. Go ahead, let me hear. No, I want to hear what you were thinking. You can sit down, it's okay. I'll find you. Huh?
Okay. These words are equal to 462. 462. And the word Tanya is 461 plus the word 462. So there's a connection. And that's the
No, but that's yeah, but you know what you just said is very, very big. It's not you picking numbers out of a hat. It's like, oh, look at this, what numbers it is. Oh, wow. The numbers are actually giving us a clue. There's a connection. What is the connection to the word and you are able and the Tanya? That's essentially what the Tanya is all about. Tanya says, and he says it on the cover page. Interestingly, talk about it. The cover page of the Tanya is very unique. Why? Most authors in those days, any Sfarim, any holy books you find, were actually not published by the author themselves. Typically, it was published after the lives of the later time. So the cover page is never written by themselves. That's why there's all these glamorous titles and so on. Because it was written about them, not by them. The Alter Rebbe published his own book, the Tanya. Even his other Hasidic discourses were published like later after his passing. This was published very unique. It's published while Alter Rebbe was alive, and that's why he went to prison. Well, look at this. 2 years before it was published, 2 years before the prison was when it was published, and that created all that opposition. So the Alter Rebbe wrote the cover page. Essentially, what he writes is, this is something attainable and achievable by all. And the the long short way and all that stuff, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? He writes the long short way, but it's attainable. In other words, it's a process, but you're able to achieve it. It's not one of those things that you're going to just for the rest of your life, you're never going to get there. You're going to get there. But you have to stay the course, you have to work it out, you have to work it. This is a process you have to work it. That's what Batul means. And that's what Yaakov did. So there is it's not just numbers. Oh, you have a truck? I don't have any money. Equals the same numbers, give me a truck. What kind of democracy is that? You know what I mean? What's the connection? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It has to make sense. And here it makes sense. Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I like it. It makes sense. Anyway, you want to hear another story that I heard that people talk about?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Okay. So l'chaim. So what does everybody do on Rosh Hashanah? Basically at Rosh Hashanah, right? Everybody.
I'm taking over.
No, everybody basically thinks that they're transforming. That's really what the day is. They transform. God's getting out of the year. We say a prayer, that today you decide life, right? Who by fire, who by water, right? And you want to apply it spiritually, who's going to die or who's going to live by fire or water, right? What's fire and water? Well, fire, passion, right? Water represents dissemination, but in the negative, fires and people are excited. Excited about what? Excited about materialism, excited about things that are really not necessary in life, and that takes them away and distracts them from what's really important. Water, cold, apathy, right? But today's the day when we say we don't want to die, we want to live, right? Now, if you want to live, that means you want to live what? A meaningful life, okay? So in essence, would you agree with me that essentially you can say Rosh Hashanah is a day of transformation. And if we're lucky, we transform, we have a good year, and that brings us lessons. So Yud Tes Kislev, the 9th day Kislev, is Rosh Hashanah, day of transformation. I'll tell you a story that I heard about transformation from the Rebbe, and it's based on the teachings in the Alter Rebbe. He's trying to get rid of it. He knows I'm not the right person. And here's an amazing story. In this story, what? No, yeah, especially. So here's an amazing story, and you have to hear it and live it every day. Because every day we have these watershed moments in a small measure. Listen to the story. A guy who came to the Rebbe, a person who came to the Rebbe, and I'm telling you the story. The guy said, I can't tell you the name who I heard it from, so then you might figure out who the story happened to. But he heard it from the person, the guy was saying the story, and that little Farbrengen by the oil, 4 o'clock in the morning, by the J back. He heard it from the person, has writing. Literally, second hand. Literally, but mamish fresh. It's happened many years ago. This guy, as you can tell from the story, was obviously for a while, he was a real bad boy. And he did some very, very terrible things. Very bad, terrible things. And I guess he did tshuva. But he was struggling. And he pushed it. Push it means literally. Are you listening? Yes. He literally could not live with himself. And it was getting worse and worse. He went into Yechidut, he went into a private audience with the Rebbe. And basically what he told the Rebbe is that he just feels like he can no longer live with himself. And every time he thinks the past and everything he was and everything he did, even though he's in a better place now, he just and he was basically saying, I don't want to live. I don't know if he was actually saying the big S word, but he basically was telling the Rebbe he struggled. He struggled to stay where he is, stay alive. He can't move on. He can't continue. And the Rebbe told him the following. An amazing thing. I'm telling you, can help you any day, any moment you decide. You know what? I want to be a better person. I want to do good. So it's a brand new moment. Listen to the story. It's amazing. The Rebbe said to him, in the second section of Tanya, Shar HaYichud Emunah, which speaks about fundamentally what we believe. Right? The unity of God. What it's all about. What is the main point Alter Rebbe makes there? It's all about Yesh Me'ayin. Right? Hashem created the world ex nihilo, something from nothing. And that's why the Alter Rebbe says, so to speak, Hashem has no choice. And that's why when we say Ve'ata mechayeh et kulam, we're not saying you're giving life to all, we're saying you're actually making life. You're actually creating them, making them into creation. In other words, the way Hashem gives life to the world, it's not like you put in a battery into an already existing thing and you're giving it energy. Now it works. It's obvious there's a battery there. But rather, the thing would not exist without Hashem's word. And what is the premise of this? Since Hashem created the world, something from nothing, so he has to constantly be creating it. Right? You read this? You read this in the second section of that, right? The Rebbe says it, what? Right, he has to create it all the time, over and over. Right? So the Rebbe said to this person, wait a minute. Think for a moment. Hashem is the Almighty. He's all able. Why couldn't Hashem create the world as he did? Something from nothing, yesh me'ayin, but in such a way that he doesn't have to recreate it all the time. Hashem can do whatever he wants.
Like stand alone, let it stand alone.
Let it stand alone.
Right.
You and I cannot create something for nothing because we're not able to. And like the mashal that's always given in Chassidus, where do you see something for nothing? The Rebbe Rashab brings it a lot in the Maimorim. I don't know, it was Ranat, I don't remember what it was, whatever the yeshiva was.
Talking
In
about
between
the
stills when I was
tzemach?
there.
The tzemach in the ground?
No.
Oh.
If you take a rock, a ball, you throw it up in the air. How far will it go up in the air? As far as your energy is pushing it. That's yesh me'ayin. The moment that yesh ends, comes right back down. Okay, we know it's gravity, whatever. But the point is, because it's not natural for it to be up there. I made it, I created it, I pushed it to go up there. The moment my energy is no longer pushing it, that's whatever shop plant, it comes back down. So but that's me and you. I don't have the ability to create something for nothing. But Hashem does. So why couldn't Hashem create the world in such a manner that it's yesh me'ayin, as it is, it was yesh me'ayin, but guess what? He is so powerful that it doesn't have to be recreated every moment. And the Rebbe told him the answer is Hashem was not forced to do it. Hashem chose to make the world in such a way. You know why? He says to him because Hashem desired, Hashem wanted, there should be a world that every moment it's a new world. The world that existed a moment ago no longer exists. It's a brand new world. And therefore you, the person you were before, when you transport yourself and you decide you're no longer that person, you're a new person. You're a new person, that person that exists. It's a history in the past. It's not you. That's what it's all about. And I heard that story, like, because it's like the ultimate redemption. It's like, yeah, I'm better now, but I did this in the past. Right now, if creation is a new thing, and you signed into it, you signed on, right? You believe in it. You're a new existence. You're a new creation. You're a new being. So what are you worried about? Unbelievable. Huh? I mean, look how the Rebbe makes it, and then when you hear it, you're like, yeah, it's so obvious. It makes sense. Like, that's the Rebbe's, the beauty, the Rebbe's explanation of things. Like, after you hear it, you're like, yeah, that's so obvious. Like, maybe someone would have looked so clear. No? So we should become new beings.
What was the beginning of the story? I missed a little bit. How did it start?
The guy was about children. He must have been a very bad boy. He did some very bad things, and he just couldn't live with himself. But he went into Chassidus to the Rabbi, basically saying that he just doesn't want to go on.
It's over.
It's over. He can't. Just now that he's becoming more observant and more
what,
he
how
sees
big
what he
his
did in
mistakes
his past, and he's like, he can't live. I don't know if he said the big S word. By the way, I want to tell you a story from the Rebbe that actually illustrates this. What? Sit and don't say goodbye. What? Nice to meet you. Zil, Rod, Zil, come on.
Yeah.
Thank you, it was a pleasure. Well, can I make a suggestion?
Good to see
She's
you.
over to the guy who makes the a red one. No? Pink one, no? Depends on the mood. Oh, wow. Anyway.
So, we have a story.
No, I so I'll tell you a beautiful, amazing story. You guys wouldn't know what it is, but there was a Yiddish newspaper. Rabbi Moshe, you remember it? The Alter Rebbe, which means the General Journal. Still exists, right? But now it's right now it's just on I have people waiting to read it to come out of it. It was you know why Jacobson? Sure. His father, okay, was a journalist. He was a Chabad guy, religious guy, but he was a talented journalist. And his father owned a Ruda, which, by the way, was all the Rebbe pushing into the. Okay, and that way there was a platform, especially to the Yiddish speaking crowd, also especially if you know the most difficult, intense times we had soccer this, but this was the Yiddish, so this was a platform. It wasn't like we had the internet then to publicize the Rebbe's view on things and so on. It was an amazing thing. Anyway, listen to this. As a journalist, talking about transformation. As a journalist, he had the ability, and he traveled to Russia. I mean, you understand what this is? In the 70s. In the 70s. I mean, talking about a Jew with a full beard and but he's a journalist. And he was there for 10 days. Now, he happened to speak Russian because he's originally from Georgia, from Russia, so he's a Georgian Jew. He spoke Russian. It was his mother tongue. It was his natural language. Yiddish, Russian, Hebrew, but Russian. Kitzer, make a long story short, of course, he had directives from the Rebbe, people he met and stuff. The instructions were that when he lands, immediately he should notify the Rebbe's secretariat, notify the Rebbe that he landed. So he landed on a Tuesday morning, and of course, Shul took on. He didn't wait till he got home. And there was no cell phone, so he ran to a payphone. You remember payphones? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. And he.
I do. It's amazing that it's like it's such a long thing.
Have a special story. Yeah, those are those. Oh. Remember? Oh, you're old enough. Oh, gosh, this guy's ancient. Remember those days? I remember we went to a quarter. We always were going to make a revolution.
And if you have a quarter, you might see
the Colecos. Yeah.
13th Avenue.
Yeah, Kolahem. Kulturi. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so he went to payphone. He called right away. He let know that he just landed back in New York. And he thought in his mind, he was expecting that certainly it's understand. Imagine you have children, right? A child. Children, right? Imagine you don't see a child for 40 years. You hear a child. That's what the Rebbe loved the Russian children. The Rebbe lived with them every day. The Rebbe, unbelievable. Okay? And he was expecting for sure, he was certain in his mind, for sure, he's going to get a call that tonight he should come see the Rebbe. The Rebbe wants to hear a full report. Tuesday night passes. Tuesday passes, nothing. Wednesday passes, nothing. Stand. Whatever. Thursday afternoon, he gets a call from Rabbi Chadakov, that's the secretary. Tonight, right after Myrick, right after the evening, which is basically the Rebbe would work the whole day. If the Rebbe saw people, he saw at night, after work. He didn't infringe on his work hours and his study hours. The Rebbe wants to see. So basically, be ready 11 o'clock. He said 11 o'clock, be ready by the Rebbe's office. Okay. He found out, the Rebbe explained to him, kind of, why he didn't call him right away. The Rebbe was so eager. The Rebbe said to him, I want you to know, that's how we know the story, that when I and my wife arrived here, you know the story, the Rebbe arrived with his wife. Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was saved from the Holocaust, and he came in 1940. The Rebbe and his wife didn't come to 1941. And you can imagine that the previous Rebbe knows that he lost a daughter, Treblinka, or she's not coming, so she was lost a little later. I don't recall exactly the date, and a son-in-law. And here, and we don't know that Rebbe was his beloved son-in-law. But the Rebbe came, and for 3 days, they were not called to see the previous Rebbe. you wonder why. And the previous the Rebbe said, my father-in-law, I couldn't understand. The Rebbe, you don't go. It doesn't matter that you fought. You don't go. He explained to him that since he was such excited, such emotions, that he needed to first calm them down. He wanted to see that they had a real time. So imagine the strength. Yeah. Several days, 3 days, he didn't call them, they didn't go. His daughter and his son, they hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and that he was fought tooth and nail to get them out of burning Europe. So now Rabbi Jacobson understood that the Rebbe was so excited, so eager that the Rebbe practiced self-control. He didn't call him Tuesday, didn't send a message Wednesday, and now Thursday. Anyway, he describes he was very lucky that it didn't stop him. He wouldn't have been around to tell the story if he did. He had a whole package of letters that people used, personal letters that people did, which is really a big no-no. You know what I mean? But somehow, because he was a journalist, they didn't check his bags or whatever. He said he handed it to the Rebbe. Jews in Russia, the most difficult, challenging situation. He said the way the Rebbe took the package is more than a great-grandfather holding his grandchild that was just born. Held it with such love. And then he says, the Rebbe started to pull out letters. And by the way, the Rebbe pulled out letters. It's not that just started from the top. The Rebbe pulled out certain letters. He didn't notice which one, whatever. The Rebbe started to read it. And the Rebbe was getting emotional. The Rebbe was sobbing. So he felt uncomfortable, so he started to walk back. Like, he just leave the room. Leave the Rebbe with the letters. And the Rebbe stayed. He said the Rebbe read about, I don't remember exactly the number, something between 10 and 20 letters. The Rebbe went through. You can see that the Rebbe didn't just read the letter. He kind of went into it, And then the Rebbe left the rest of the package there. And he sat down, which is an amazing thing, because typically a chassid wouldn't sit down in front of the Rebbe. You know that, right? A Siddur would have sit in front of the Rebbe. You saw the video, this Matzah Shabbos, the Living Torah, at the wedding. No, I'm sorry. It was going around on the 14th of Kislev, the wedding, the last wedding where the Rebbe officiated, right?
I think I saw it.
Right? So Rabbi, Zalman Jaffe, right? The first time he came to the Rebbe, he's an English statesman. The Rebbe said, the Rebbe invited him to sit, chairs, and he sat down with his wife. The next time he came to the Rebbe, he didn't want to sit down. The Rebbe says, come on, you're sitting down. He says, no, Rabbi. Rabbi Shem Tov, said that, sit and don't sit. The Rebbe told him, I won't tell him. But he didn't sit down. Sit and don't sit in front of the Rebbe. But in this case, he wasn't in there as a chassid. He was there as a journalist. And the Rebbe wanted to see, he sat down. Talking about, by the way, standing. You know Rabbi Shapiro in Miami Beach? Mm-hmm. His grandfather was the Rebbe's teacher. Yeah. Was the Rebbe's teacher, his grandfather back, who was a friend of the Rebbe's father, and came to be a shochet, a ritual slaughter, and by the end he had no job, there was no, and then he said, you know what, they don't give me a chance. He taught the Rebbe. And after a couple of years, he was like, look, I have nothing more to teach this guy. Just kidding. And later the Rebbe said to his family, a few years. I don't know if it was
up until the age of
several years. And the Rebbe even said to the family, he said, you should know that in Yiddish we say, he put me on my feet. Can you imagine the Rebbe saying that? So listen what happened. He says, just to show, to illustrate to you, you don't sit. When he finally left Russia and he came to the Rebbe, first time he came to the Rebbe, remember, this is a student. He was a student as a 7-year-old kid. As soon as he walked into the room, the Rebbe stood up. And the Rebbe asked him to sit. But he's not going to sit in front of him. But the Rebbe wasn't going to sit down in front of him because the Rebbe respected him. So they had a holy chiddush where the Rebbe stood and he stood. Right? Later, Rabbi Shapiro says a story. I'm sure you've heard it from a million times. Later, he had a stroke and he was handicapped. It was a difficult for him. So when the Rebbe had a Farbrengen, the Rebbe's Farbrengen, it went for hours. So he was an older man. It was difficult for him. So he had to go out in the middle of the bathroom. And that's when he couldn't stay as long. So he couldn't sit that long. So he had to leave. And then he told me he stopped going to Farbrengen. Why? Because he noticed that when he would go out, just climb over the benches, instead of go out, he was standing. The Rebbe wouldn't fully stand, but he would lift himself up. And the Rebbe had this willpower that's crazy. The Rebbe had a chair with armrests. You know what it is to stand like this, or like this, and no one would notice if you didn't pay attention. And they say actually the story the Rebbe had it with his mother also. His mother would come to Farbrengen and something on Shabbos. The Rebbe noticed his mother, she was standing in the women's gallery. And for several hours, the Rebbe was standing like, I don't know what my back would have been twisted like a pretzel. But that was the Rebbe. So you understand, to sit in front of the Rebbe was something, but here was something different. Okay, anyway, that was I digressed. That was the story. Going back to he sat there, and the Rebbe started asking him about this community, this person, that person, and about the plight and the difficulties and the challenges of the Jews. He said he's sitting there all night, and there was literally buckets of tears. The Rebbe was emotional. The Rebbe lived the pain of the Russian Jewry. It was just like heart-wrenching, right? And this went through the whole night. They sat the whole night. And then it was like 5-something in the morning. Close to 6. Suddenly the Rebbe got up. You've been to the Rebbe's room, right? Blinds. Same blinds over there. What?
I haven't.
Should be. It's an experience. The Rebbe went over, moved the blinds, looked out. You can see already the rays of the new day coming up. Right? So now the Rebbe is facing the Rebbe turns around. New day. And he says that person that was sitting there a moment ago crying, totally emotional, the person was gone. It's like it's a new day, a new opportunity, new light. I know we can't switch to that, but we have to have the idea. We have to be aware of this idea. And that connects to me. That connects to that. What I said. If you really sign up to transformation, no, it's a new one. That person you were a moment ago no longer exists. A new one. Oh, my wife. Okay, that's a separate. I don't remember what I ate yesterday, and she knows 27 and a half years ago you said this, and you shut up.
Date, time, and second.
What? I don't remember. Ask me what color. Like, I don't. 5 minutes ago, I don't remember.
And on the edge of the new shows.
What? Talk about the color of my wife. Which part did you like best? L'chaim. Hashem should help. Hashem should help, but we shouldn't interfere in his help. I think as long as Hashem wants to help us, right? We don't let him. No, really, no. You get in the way. Right? L'chaim.
So let him do his job.
That's what I'm saying. Hey.
He doesn't best.
No? You've been to the oil, right?
Yes.
You should know. If you ever, there's other things to go. Mondays and Thursdays. So there's open. In the morning. The Rebbe's. Every time there's a Torah meeting, it's open. And also, you can make it. There's ways to connect it.
It just happened that I was in the area on those days.
That's what I need to
Have sense.
Very nice. Okay. So, I want to tell you a quick story. Being that you stay till then, I know you might get over the head. Remember I told you earlier about this Chassid? Remember Futakar?
Oh, your mind.
Everybody thinks
Maybe you should stay in Sterling Street.
What?
You should stay in Sterling Street.
Oh, it's a snack shop. I don't even remember.
What's
That's how,
keeping you?
yeah, that's how disconnected I am.
How old was he? You know, man.
I'll tell you what's special. I want to tell you, me, what's special about it. My personal take. You have a lot of great friends, Hasidim and Rabbi people. To me, he's like the ultimate person. Like, this guy had the hardest life in the world. Don't talk about it. The hardest life in the world.
Rabbi, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Shabbos. See you tomorrow. You guys don't believe me anymore, but I'll be here.
Your Shabbos is Shabbos? Make us
Yes,
feel like we're
I'm
offended.
coming this Shabbos.
Make us feel like we offended
I'm
you.
coming. No, Chassidus Shalom.
Have you already the Shabbos?
Yeah, I'm coming. Don't ever feel like you can't do anything wrong to me, guys. You are the best.
Just by the Rebbe, the Wednesday hour. Very, very much. One time I did this, and I don't know where this. Yesterday, If they asked for a birthday for the charges that I had Wednesday hour. You know what that ever did? Yes.
Well,
Never stood up for you?
yeah. The mitzvah show, so never someone said he went to the East time.
Really?
What was that? What was that?
So the Rebbe, when someone made kids, they go to these time. They would stand up for them.
You know what these times?
What, from school? They were from public
They
school?
call it the Wednesday hour in New York over here too, right? You do that's what you do, right?
We do every day.
Every day. Okay, but they have 1 hour a week when public school ends an hour earlier. It's basically meant to be for religious instruction. The kid is part of the school, so the previous Rebbe started with the previous Rebbe's baby, you can say, and it's still going on until now. There's not many, all the children who went through it were definitely touched, and their souls were ignited. Some maybe it's visible and obvious in the literal sense, and every one of them. And by the Rebbe, this is so sacred because remember, his Rebbe was the one who instituted it. And wow, see, he said when he asked the Rebbe by his birthday, by the Rebbe, you were going for private audience. If you were a student in yeshiva, you didn't just go like that. Because the Rebbe's a special occasion was your birthday. He says when he went in, right? Am I saying it right? He went in and he asked, the blessing that he asked is that his charges, meaning the students that he studies with, in his Wednesday hour, in the release time, that they should all come closer to Torah and mitzvahs. They should all be observant. And as soon as they said that, the ghost that ever stood up for it. You know what it means? I don't have the words because I'm not capable of really capturing the Rebbe's greatness. But if you think of Moshe walking down the mountain, think of the Rebbe. At the Rebbe, so imagine Moshe standing up in front of you because you do what you do. You're going 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week. You're going there. It's always you're getting a few candies to the kids and saying Shema with them. To us, it seems like what's a big deal. Someone said that it's a big, right? And then it was a big deal. You say Shema with the kids. What?
I think your experience with Moshe Rabbeinu and Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation. Mashiach of the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation. You're getting wrong.
Yeah. Every
These kids.
Yeah.
I don't think the kids were better. The kids was asking for advice. And one of the things that I'm able to see in the room with the kids is when there's financial issues and the Rebbe tell them you keep Shabbos and you're serving, and the Rebbe always tell them, trying to keep Shabbos. If you have a business, set it on Friday or Shabbos, and you get it back on the next day. And a lot of the kids that the Rebbe had, these little people, was about keeping Shabbos.
Yeah. So what was I saying before?
Oh, right. Oh, sure.
Very, very hard life. No. Extremely hard. Okay? And just to give you a little background on this person, to say a story about Avremel. I don't know which story I wanted to say.
How does Rabbi Kiva?
Not that is. Avremel was
You saying how he has it?
no, but I wanted to say it. I just said who's this person gives me perspective. I don't recall what. Avremel, what was his name? What was his name? His name was Menachem Mendel Ben Menachem. He was named after his own father. He never saw his father.
Smarty?
No, he wasn't Smarty. No, he
No, his
wasn't
father.
Smarty. His father passed away before he was born.
Oh.
So already he starts up, right? And then he didn't start. And then he had his whole hardships. He didn't see his family. Oh, I know what I want to say. He didn't see his family for over 15 years. You know the famous escape from Russia after World War II? He was one of the people who were in charge of all that. And he sent his family out. They left Russia. He got stuck behind. He got arrested, sent to Siberia, and he managed to survive it, which is a great miracle in itself. And then, but later he was still stuck in Russia.
How long
While he was away, his only son and daughter, they got married. They started families. He wasn't even there. They were in England. But I want to go back a little bit. Remendel, he had like 6 kids, maybe 7. But there was a difficult time during the war. There was famine. Even though they managed to escape deep into Russia, like Samarkand, Tashkent, but like Georgia. But the fact is that because of the war and everything, because of the effects, there was a shortage of food and people and all kinds of illnesses, all kinds of diseases. Literally were dropping like flies. And this didn't only happen to remember, but this is a particular story which, I want to share with you. The Mendel, he had several children that died. And he was down to his son and his daughter. They should live and be well. He was down to his son and his daughter. And then the boy fell ill. Remember, the illness is flying around. All kinds of contagious diseases. And the only reason we know the story is a dear friend of his who happened to be there. And you see these iconic pictures of them, both of them wearing the Russian casket, the Russian cap, and beards. The Berkheim, a dear friend of his. And they made up again later at the Rebbe. The Berkheim was there when he was told, when Mendel was told by the doctors, just go and see your son to say goodbye. It's over. Literally, child's life is taken away. It was a done deal. It was over. Just out of, I guess you can say, decency and respect. The Berkheim left the room, backed out. Right? Here's the father with his child. He already lost several children. And his only son now, he's gone. Can't stay in the room. So he left the room. But he was smart enough to leave the door crack open and he listened. And you know what he heard? This kid was already what we call in halakhic terms, koses. You know what koses means? Halachically, that means somebody who's already in the process of dying. The soul is already departing the body. There's certain rules that are applicable at that time. What you're allowed to do, you're not allowed to do. Basically, the person is dying. It's not that going to. They're in the process of dying. It's just a stretched out process. If Berkheim goes out of the room, this is his dear friend. There's nothing he can do. He's helpless. And he listens in. And he heard Remendel praying. And Remendel was speaking to God. And he said, I ask that you spare the life of my son. I don't have any merits. The man did have a lot of merits. But he didn't see himself as such. He says, the one thing that I know that I have merit for is and I ask that his life be spared, is that I never left Farbrengen before it was over. That child, great grandfather. So there's something, you stay till the end. I don't know if I'm worthy of seek to me, but what I'm saying is staying to the end of Farbrengen. That's what Avremel said. I never left the Farbrengen before it was, I didn't go to his son survived. From death to life. Today he's, like I said, a great grandfather.
He could have got out of ship.
What? You could have gotten it.
Who
Stayed.
was Yasha with?
Oh, the beautiful tower.
She went there, yeah, I said to him. You see his cabbage?
Zeg het dat goed.
He's not don't look in the eye. See his cabbage?
That's a quick. By the way, since that he brought the story, I gotta say, give you the background, get some inspiration. Mendel's mentors, some famous Chassidus. One of them is called Rabbi Alter Rebbe. His name is Rabbi Khan. But in those days, especially in the Chabad circles, usually you name the person after the city they were from. So Poltava is the city. So they call me Rabbi of Poltava. That's the nicknames you got. Rabbi of Poltava is a holy Jew. Just to give you a depiction of the situation in those days, the only picture we have of Rabbi is very hard to look at. In that picture, he looks like a skinhead. Literally.
He's a chassid of who?
He was an amazing chassid. Listen, I'm giving you the background because he brought up the story.
Yeah. On the Rebbe?
Yeah, the previous Rebbe. Yeah, please say he didn't survive past that. Why is he looking at skinhead? This is a Yid that wouldn't touch his beard. But obviously they forcibly shaved his face and his head, his hair, and his beard up and everything. And that's the only picture we have. It's a picture as after he was arrested and he died somewhere, no one knows who he was. Reb Mendel was involved. Basically, in short, it's a whole story in itself, and there's books published about it already, and it's worth reading it. It's worth reading it for one reason. Thank God we don't have to go through it. But to get some inspiration. And I'm talking to myself. In the day-to-day, stupid things happen. You're all caught up in it. It ruffles our feathers. BS. But these people had to live through it. And still, I want to tell you something. I think it was Remendel. Or maybe another one. I think it was Remendel. I saw the scripture. Someone says when he met after he was released from the gulag, you know the gulag? I mean, if you survive it, it's unbelievable. That's split mercy. Can you imagine a person didn't see normal people, didn't live a normal life. And he came, so he met in the first place that he came, there was able to meet another chassid. And he saw a pure film. He had to put on tefillin in years. Not because he didn't want him, not because he was lazy. There was no film. He started to kiss and hug those tefillin and started to cry. In fact, many years later, Mendel would go on Fridays, put on tefillin with people in Israel. He lived in Israel. The Rebbe sent him to Israel. You know what a midrachov is? You know when you have, how do you say midrachov?
Midrachov?
Yeah.
Midracha?
No, midrachov. The midrachov is basically that they have some places, they do it in all these urban places now, where they close off in the city, where there's no car access. So there's only pedestrian access. You can have blocks to blocks. If you want to get, you have to park far away.
Lincoln Road.
Like Lincoln Road, yeah, exactly, Lincoln Road. So he would go to an Allenby. There's a place like that. It's called a midrachov. Midrachov means the center of the street. So it's like, and as he got older, he had problems with his feet. It was very hard for him to walk. So the person that he would go with every week, Shalom Feldman, all over Shalom, he describes. He asked for Mendel, and Mendel, it was painful to watch him drag himself to go there, just to be there. He was already old. He was already, it was hard for him to walk and everything. And he insisted on going every Friday. They said, why are you 3 points? No, he said 2 things. Number one, everything else I do, I don't know. But this I know the Rebbe wanted us to do. This is my connection. Put on film with people. Put on film with people. Put on film with people. Number two, he said, all those years that I couldn't put on film against my own will, against my own choice. Perhaps now that I get other years to put on film, it's somehow made up.
I asked people to put on film. One guy asked me the Alter Rebbe said that you put on film here in Miami, it helps the child, the soldier, is successful in watching your hands. So the guy, the Rebbe said that? He said, yes, it's okay, let's go.
See, that shows how he believes. So I'm just trying to illustrate, give you a picture to the story that he said about Rabbi Yoina Putava. So Rabbi Yoina was Rabbi Mendel's mashpia. He was one of his mentors. Now this is a time, understand, what happened was after World War II, the Russian paradise, the communist paradise, which is, by the way, usually a very, very inherent sign that things are so good that they lock the borders. They don't let you out. Most countries don't let you in. They don't let you out. Why? It's such a great paradise that because you're so stupid that you don't understand that it's a great paradise, but they have to help you. You know what I mean? They have to.
Sure you understand.
Yeah. You're trying to hurt yourself. So in spite of yourself, they're trying to help you. All right? I know America. If you want to go, leave. Don't let them go. Hit you on the way out. No problem.
You want something to suicide. You look at it. You want to leave Russia?
Yeah, exactly.
You're not well.
You're not well. Exactly. You're sick, and we have to help you. Okay. So Mendel, and not Mendel. Mendel was the first one. What happened was, Chassidim was smart. And they smelled an opportunity. The Russian government, the communists, right? What do the communists believe in, by the way? That everybody was created equal, right? Yeah. But what's the problem? That some people are created more equal.
Right, exactly.
That's the only problem, right? That's communism, in short. You don't need any more. That's what, right? So, what happened? The communist government, they said, it's a good faith gesture and the world that all the Polish expatriates, which means a lot of Polish citizens, escaped. They're running away from Poland. A lot of them, somehow smuggled away into Russia, right? Which happened. Like I met a Jew, by the way. I met a Jew. I have to remember Miami Beach. He was a nudge. He used to come to the learning center, state college, Russian. And he always used to say, "I love Stalin." I said, "You love Stalin?" He says, "Because of him, my family survived." Why? Because Stalin took all of them and sent them to Siberia. But because in the Siberia, they weren't near Moscow, so they weren't decimated by the Nazis. So in turn, it turns out that they're right. But that's what happened to a lot of the Polish Jews. But you know what? Some of them didn't survive with the famine, with illnesses, whatever it is. But the Russian government said all Polish citizens, and we can prove it, will be allowed to leave Russia. So there were trainloads of people with Russia, and the Russian consulate, the Polish consul was there. Chassidim got wind of it, and right away started a whole underground counterfeit operation, either procuring passports. Now, I don't know if you know, but in Russia and Poland, the way the passports work, I don't know if it's still today, but I remember this when I was there as a student. The passport is not our passport. You have a passport, it's your passport. Your kid has a passport, it's her passport. The passport there says your name as the head of a household, as a mother or father, and your children's name. So it's like kind of one passport, it's all attached. So now here's where the whole operation started, and they got people, and they got this, and they, people assume different identities, either people who died, right? Polish citizens who died, the refugees who died, so you can use their passports, or passports you had to take out the pictures and change. It was a whole operation. And several trainloads of Chabad families left, hundreds of families. These people are responsible for hundreds. Today, thousands of Chabad Chassidim, you're talking about their children and children's children, and children's children already, are alive today and in connection to because of that. So Reb Mendel sent his family
I'm here from such.
Yeah, oh, you too, right? Yeah.
My grandmother would.
By the way, just a nice anecdote.
Forger.
Just a nice anecdote. Wait, your grandmother was who? Sarah?
Sarah.
That's your grandmother?
My grandmother Sarah
Woman Sarah was your grandmother?
is one of the sagas.
No, you're talking about a heroic woman. There was one of the women that was involved in this operation. She was like a courier and doing. They caught her. You'll hear the story. They called her the Mumma Sarah, which anti-Sarah. That was her nickname. Her name was Sarah. Talking about heroism. They tortured this lady to death. But what happened was that the torture they used, they wanted her, they want to break them when they found the act. And they basically brought in her own son, who was also being put. Two of her sons were caught. They're alive today. They already passed away, but they passed away of old age. And these guys were beaten black and blue. Like, this is your son. Like, they were sure the lady's going to break. I mean, she's talking about strength of a person. I don't know where these people got the strength from. But anyway, make a long story short. The idea was, in many families, you can't get on the trains, out. Once they cross the border, freedom. Even though a lot of these families, they all ended up in DP camps. And they hung out there for a year or two until they ended up in Israel, they ended up in Australia. But at least they could practice Judaism and they weren't under constant oppression. Reb Mendel started to feel the heat. The heat started. The heat was basically KGB's catching on and everything. And he already had sent his family out in the first shipment. And he felt like maybe he should leave. He can't take the hit anymore. And that's the story that he said. He came to his mentor. Look what kind of chassid he was. He didn't do anything without asking his mashpia. And he said to him, "You can't." In other words, he did so much, you can't take. And that's what he said. Unbelievable story. He said to him, so that means, in other words, what you're telling me is that even the Chassidus nefesh has a limit. You tell him. The Chassidus nefesh has a limit. And Mendel didn't leave. And guess what happened? Mendel was caught. Rabbi was caught. Rabbi was tortured to death. We don't know his whereabouts. I said, just except for that picture. He was killed. Reb Mendel's an anomaly that he survived. That's the story that he's saying. That we have to know. The Chassidus nefesh, there's no limit. Thank God today we don't have to deal with communists. We deal with our own challenges. We need our own Chassidus nefesh. Anyway, l'chaim.
How long was Reb Mendel in prison?
I think he spent close to 10 years.
10 years.
Then afterwards he was stuck for like 5-6 years in Russia. Couldn't go out. By the way, the Rebbe spoke about him, right?
He goes around collecting money.
To build mikvahs.
Moving up mikvahs.
So the Rebbe spoke about it a few years before he came out from Russia. The Rebbe was speaking about the Chassidus nefesh, the self-sacrifice of the Yid in Russia. And he says there's a Yid in Russia that he goes around, Chassidus nefesh. Nice meeting you. Make sure to go to the Rebbe's room.
What's up, buddy?
Be there, or be nowhere. And the Rebbe spoke about it publicly. The Rebbe usually wouldn't speak about people. He didn't say his name, but everybody knew who he's talking about, especially when he came out. He said he goes around. This is all clandestine. In fact, this guy was in trouble for all these years for going against the communists. What did he do as soon as he got out? He went against the communists. He's not going to stop. That's what his mentor told him. The Chassidus nefesh has no limit. So he's collecting money and building mikvahs, and the Rebbe said, for him, it has no practical application. His wife was in England. Okay? So I'll finish with this. He's the famous chassid. He is the chassid. The famous story of the Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, answering a letter, even though it was never physically received. You know the story? No. You know the story? Okay. We'll take this.
Talking about in France with the Rebbe? When the Rebbe
Mendel
told him that
was
the
arrested. Just give you perspective. When Mendel was arrested, it was about 1946, 1947, right after the war. Consider a long time ago, but not too long after the war. So let's say 1946. The previous Rebbe was the Rebbe until 1950. He passed away in 1950. Chassidim, whenever you're in distress, whenever you have a problem, what do? You write a pan. Pan means a pidyon nefesh. Literally translated redemption of the soul. Write a letter asking the Rebbe for a blessing. When Mendel arrived in Siberia, and suddenly it all collapsed. It all dawned. He realized what he is. And he realized what this means. Most people who go there don't come out alive. Even today, let alone back then. Today, you have all the human rights and all this BS and all that stuff. No. Most Chassidim, by the way, there's tens and tens of Chassidim. All the prominent Chabad families. No one has any clue where the grandfather is buried, great grandfather is buried, because they were thrown in they died in the Gulag. Gone. Understand? There's no place to come and pay homage and say, I'm going to say Kaddish. So Mendel realizes he's there. And being behind, I mean, I remember growing up and hearing about it, hearing people, like, you heard people who were first time there. The Iron Curtain was a real thing. In the real life situation our Mendel was in, he's never going to see his family. Unless a miracle happens. It's like literally like the splitting of the sea. Okay? And now he's in the Gulag, so he didn't survive it. That all came crashing down on him. And as a chassid, he felt like he's like, I feel so down. And it's not the way I should feel. He stood as a chassid, he's supposed to feel positive and everything. But he's thinking to himself, if only I could. Only I would write upon it, write a letter to the Rebbe. And he can't. I don't know. Yeah, go pay for it. Was he supposed to go to the office and send it so he gets shot the next day? Like, the Rabbi Schneerson, meaning the previous Rabbi Rebbe, was public enemy number one for the communist regime. Public enemy number one. Okay? So in his mind, he thought to himself, he said, oh, if only I was able to write to the Rebbe. This is what I want. This is how I asked him. Many years later, so almost 15 years later, he finally made out of Russia, which was a miracle in itself. And he came to England, where his family was, to find out that his son got married, his daughter got married. His wife showed him letters that, things that happened to try to catch up on lost time. And she shows him a letter, she says, he doesn't understand. She was perplexed when she got it. She couldn't understand how he succeeded in sending a letter from the Gulags to New York. Because the letter she received says it's addressed to him, but on their address. And it says, I received your pon. I received your letter. You never heard the story? I received your letter. No. I'm not saying it in the same way. I'm saying you write to the Rebbe. The Rebbe hears. I can tell you my own personal stories, little stories, but when you really connect, when you really mean it, not faking it. Oh, I'm going to do what Mendel did. Even though.
I heard it 10 million times the story.
But it's a very powerful story. And in there it says, imagine.
I'm going to grab this before I leave.
The previous Rebbe is not alive anymore. He's not here with us. This is later. He came out in 1960s. The previous Rebbe, when he came to New York, was the previous Rebbe passed away in 1950. Almost 20 years later. And he says, I received your letter on this and this day, and give my blessings and everything. A prologue to the story. And actually, this rabbi, I know he's going to be in Water Hill Shabbat, Rabbi Yisrael Darren. And he says the story, you can see it online. Gem. No, he's going to be there by the way. Yeah. I know, because someone told me. Rabbi Yisrael Darren, he was a shliach years ago. Today there's a shliach there in Amherst. It's a college town, Amherst, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, the first thing he did, they had a brand new cultural center, a theater. And the first thing he was going to do was like a Hasidic festival, Jewish music, and this will be like his break-in and so on. He's a new shliach, break in, it'll be a nice festival, it's going to get a lot of publicity, people will get involved, people will be curious, and so on. So he rents the venue, he sets up the whole thing, he puts out advertisement. It's not like today with internet. But it's Ticketmaster, right? The event is on Sunday. everything's going well. All the preparations, all the last minute things. Friday afternoon, close to Shabbos, he's curious. He calls Ticketmaster to find out how many tickets were sold. The place had capacity of about 800 people or so. They told him like about close to 80 tickets. His Shabbos turned into a Tisha B'Av. Can you imagine? I mean, you make an event in a big auditorium like that with all the stuff and no one shows up, it's going to be perfect. It's a disaster. Shabbos afternoon. He's sitting there in his apartment, his house, and he says literally he can see across the college mall. And what does he see? He sees the theater, like protruding right there, right over the distance. And he's looking at it and he's thinking to himself, that's where my downfall is coming. And tomorrow, 100 people will show. Disaster. Disaster, right? They say, by the way, if you make an event, if no one shows up, it's not so bad. No one knows if no one showed up. But if only a couple of people show up, they know it's like a disaster. What happened here? You know what I mean? They feel like weird, right? I can tell you from experience, right? And no, it hurts. And he's thinking to himself, oh my gosh, I'm a brand new shliach here. I'm trying. And this is it. This is like my burial site right there. He's thinking to himself, this story, listen to this. In his mind, he thought Shabbos can call, can write. He's thinking to himself, if only I was on the level of Remendel, I would try to send a letter now to the Rebbe. That's what he thought to himself. Come Sunday, you still got to march on, right? You have an event, Amazingly, there were throngs of people waiting to buy tickets by the door. And the place ended up being full, standing room only. Beautiful, right? A smashing success. That evening, that night, remember I told you the Rebbe saw people, when he saw people in private, it was only at night after work hours? This is Massachusetts, so it's several hours from New York. His grandmother, who lived in Pittsburgh, was there for the event. And from there, she went to New York. This is closer. That is closer. She went to New York for private audience with the Rebbe. So late at night, Sunday night, hours and hours after the event, she finished the audience, and suddenly the Rebbe asked her, usually the Rebbe engaged in conversation with her, didn't just answer the letter sheet. Tell me, were you at your grandson Yisrael's event today? He said, yes. Tell me how it was. And she says it was amazing. Such a Kiddush Hashem. Amazing. It was packed. And it was well received. And the audience loved it. And the press loved it and everything. So I said to her, wow, it's amazing. Can you understand? And yesterday, Yisrael was in total distress. Wow. You understand? Why was he so worried? You understand? So he too sent his letter to the Rebbe on Shabbos, and the Rebbe received it. And I'm telling you, I had my moments. I used to say 2 stories. As I'm saying, is never hesitate to connect to the Rebbe. I have my house. The main area, the living, it's a cathedral ceiling. You know what that means? It's like a story high. Like one of those Florida houses, you know what I'm talking about? It's very big. And I have a big, massive picture on the main wall. When you come in, which somebody gave me as a gift because I told them the story. I didn't expect them to give me anything, but behind my back, he gave me as a birthday present. And here's the story. It's basically myself as a child, about 11, 12 years old. Oh, exactly 12 years old, standing right near the Rebbe. You know, they used to have the children stand right there, but they never sat here. And literally, I can't imagine so close. Why is this so important? Why is it so significant? I was going through a very difficult time. And I'm a schmuck. My faith goes like down very quickly. Depletes very quickly. I remember sitting in my car, driving my car, like I was really feeling down. And I'm thinking, like, Rabbi, I don't even know. I don't even have the I was like, I didn't even have the mood to sit down and start writing a letter myself. I'm just like, I'm letting you know I'm in distress. I don't remember if it was 20 minutes, a half hour. Started getting WhatsApps from all directions. Anybody, everybody that knows me, literally that moment, that day, Jen uploaded like thousands of pictures, archives. I don't know who has the time to sit in the middle of the day, and thank God they do, and go through pictures of the Rebbe. Like, hello, dude, do you work for a living? Like, do you do anything? But as soon as they saw that picture, they knew it's me. Then boom, they started sending to me. And to me, that was my message. Like, the Rebbe saying, hey, dude, I got you, buddy, I got you. You're right near me. You're good. That picture became very, very significant. That was my answer. I call whatever you want. I'm just telling you, I call. Now, fast forward several years later, because I don't have that much faith, so it wears down very quickly. And this was on the eve of Sukkot. Literally, the day before Sukkot. And I have a guy, he actually lives in Aventura, but he works for me. That's my thing. A lot of people work there. That he just loves the Rebbe. I mean, thank God, because I was getting kosher. That's what the Rebbe wants, you know. He loves the Rebbe. He watches, like, I used to feel guilty. He used to send me clips of videos of the Rebbe every day. I'm like, dude, I'm not watching videos every day. I feel like so bad. Listen to this. Amazing story. So sometimes he sends me all these clips and all this stuff. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't always look at it. Sometimes I'm like, stop.
You gotta work at something.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna open up every, like, you know, political thing. That Erev Sukkot, I will never forget it. Never forget it. Because I was really down. You know, Baruch Hashem, Rosh Hashanah and Kippur is high. I don't live in Aventura. It's like, you know, it's like you fight for every Jew. You know what I mean? Listen to this. It was Erev Sukkot, so I went from this big high. I don't remember what was happening there, but it was like a low. I mean, almost crashed, almost smashed my head, you know, hitting the bottom. And I was so down. I was so morbid. And I'm trying to think of myself, hey, we're going into this Monster Carteno, right? He's got to be happy, you got to be. But I'm like down. I'm thinking to myself, I wish if they really gave me a sign, something. And then he sends me a Sukkot green. I want you to hear this so I'm finished. I'm so technologically challenged that I still don't know how to make this. But it was like a miracle sent from the Rebbe. He sent like this thing, it has like a frame. It's like a frame. I'm like, what's up? And like this nice little stickers around it, Sukkot, the Sukkah, the Lulav, and the Trove. And in the middle, there's a little tiny video that's playing. Kind of, you know what I'm talking about? And I'm like, oh shoot, he's fucking hell out of me again. I'm not in a good mood, like, but just leave me alone. And it's something that kept on pushing me. Look at it. So I'm like, okay, I look at it by the red light, I look at it. I call him out. I said, do you know why you sent me this video? He goes, yeah, because I saw what it is it's a small, tiny clip, literally 10 seconds. But the Rebbe coming out of the main entrance to 770, it's a weep, it's a royal. The Rebbe holding the love in a throat. And he walked down those 3 steps, and his sukkah was right there. So that's when the guy caught the video. I said, do you know why he said? He says, yeah, because the Rebbe is holding, love in a throat. He just got me love in a throat, so I figured that's all for both. I go, can you look at the side of the stairs? Who's standing right there? Oh,
that was you.
Wow. So those are I have other stories, but I'm too embarrassed to share them. But
someone just texted me, you can get your brother.
Me? Who am I? Let's all together. You're my brother. Who is this? Rachel Bluma. What's her mother's name? Basadella. Hashem should be the power of a Farbrengen. And not leaving until the end.
Should have to come at the right time.
Not leaving until the end. Okay.
Shai.
Shai Shabtai.
Shai Shabtai Ben.
Bruce.
Should find the right girl.
Oh,
the right girl, and the right girl should find you.
Oh,
man. Seems like you guys keep on missing each other. Thank you. Nice meeting you. Thank you so much. Yes. Where did she go to school? But they're off tomorrow.
Yeah, Broward. She's a
No, it's
Broward,
next
right?
week.
Yeah.
She's a Broward. Beis Din is also.
No, it's fine. I have a disabled child. I know his vacation, his other student's vacation starts tomorrow.
They can.
That's Dave, so Bravo starts next week?
And the other one. Do you have any of the pasta? Chaim, I didn't understand what you were saying. You wanted a blessing. Yeah, I mean, if all
everybody
the
got
rabbis
that.
give me a blessing, or more than, it'll be more than a blessing. I mean, for all.
Hashem should fulfill all your heart's desires
Amen.
in a pleasant and revealed and happy manner.
Amen.
One caveat. One caveat. So long that they're in accordance with civil law and the laws of the Torah.
Amen. Amen.
I don't know. If you have any other desires, they should be.
Go back to the Neshama of Avremel, Ben Rachel, and Emilio. They got a shul. Okay? Oh, Neshama of Emilio.
Amen.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Baruch atah
They would have had pasta with their kasha.
I don't know about it.
Oh, cake also. Pleasure.
Video of that.
What?
Yeah, I did. I did. I did.
Went to a house with him.
Yeah.
The bottle that we always buy is like